evening, everyone. We're sorry for a bit of delay here. We're having a couple technical difficulties with our Zoom license here, so we apologize for the delay. Since we're already a couple minutes in, I think most people who are going to be joining us tonight will probably have joined us. So I won't wait too much longer to let more people in, but anyone else, there might be a couple stragglers trickling in, which is just fine. Hi everybody, thank you for joining us this evening. To start with, I'd like to make everyone aware that this webinar will be recorded. We did mention this in the email that we sent out earlier with the Zoom link, but I did want to mention it again, just as a reminder. So you will be able to find this webinar posted onto the county's YouTube channel and our website probably later this week for anybody who would like to watch it again, or anybody who might not have been able to tune in, or you think it's good information to share. You can let them know that you can find it there to view again. So I'll start off by introducing myself. I am Bettina Van Nieuwkerk. I am the Land Care Supervisor with Clearwater County. Land Care is basically the environmental arm of the Agricultural and Community Services Department, and we actively support healthy and sustainable water and land use practices through the delivery of different programs and extension events like this. Tonight we have partnered with Mountain View County to bring you this very informative webinar. So thank you, Laura Lee, for partnering with us on this. So while I have your attention, I did want to make you aware of a couple other upcoming events that we have coming up here, of course, virtually. So to start with, we have our Working Well workshop, which is coming up April 20th, also at 6:30 in the evening. And then we have our weed workshops coming up as well at the end of the month on April 28th and May 5th. We have two different dates for folks to attend so that they can make either of those dates work. We do have a bit of a tailored topics to each of those days. So on April 28th, we have, obviously we'll be covering our various weed information, and then we have a presenter on beaver coexistence presentation from Cows and Fish on the 28th. And then we have our mountain pine beetle presentation on the 5th. So yeah, for anybody who would like to attend, please contact the Agriculture and Community Services office and we can get you on the list and registered for those workshops. So now on to tonight's webinar. I'll start with mentioning that we will wait to answer any questions until the end of the webinar, just so that there isn't too much back and forth between our presenter and people asking questions. But if you do have questions throughout the workshop, please feel free to type your questions in the chat, which should just be there at the bottom of your screen. Once Toso is done doing his presentation, you can unmute yourself and ask questions that way as well. So whichever you prefer. So now we'll get into introducing our speaker for this evening. So I'd like to introduce our very passionate, informative speaker, Toso Bozic. Toso is a tree expert and is a wealth of knowledge on anything trees, forestry, or agroforestry related. Toso holds a degree in forest engineering and is a member of the Alberta Institute of Agrologists and is an ISA certified arborist. He is a leading consultancy service provider for every aspect of trees and forestry and is the founder of the ATS Group and Yard Whispers. Toso has gained extensive communication experience through 2,600 public speaking events, multiple TV and radio interviews, and is the author of hundreds of articles, fact sheets, and other technical materials. So we really appreciate Toso joining us tonight, and I will now pass it over to him. I do apologize, as I mentioned at the beginning of the evening, that we are having a couple technical difficulties, so we will have to pan through the slides for Toso here on our end, but we will do the best we can. And if anybody has any questions or anything's not working on your end, please just type anything into the chat and we will do what we can to help you out. And so I will pass it over to Toso.
Thank you, Bettina, and I really appreciate from your county, Clearwater County, and Mountain View County to organize this webinar. again, our apologies for I have no control over my PowerPoint slide. So every time you're going to hear the next, that would be Bettina moving to my next slides for whatever reason, these technical difficulties I have with Zoom. Almost every night I have a Zoom presentation like this, and it's really, to be honest, many ways painful. I wish to present in face-to-face with many of you, and it's unfortunate we can't in that sense. We will have 3 presentations tonight. One of them is going to be on the tree and shelterbelt basics. The other one is going to be on pruning, and actually second one is going to be on the pests, and the third one is going to be on the pruning. And again, you can ask questions in chat and go through this. Let's go, Bettina, to next slide. Can you hear me? Okay. A little bit about my company. I've been working with provincial government for 20 years, and since March last year, I do have 2 businesses, ATTS Group and Yard Whispers. And we provide a range of offer services to residential and commercial businesses, golf course industry, urban developers, and NGO. Truly, the people who know me, trees is my passion. I learn a lot every day through the trees, and through this business, I try to share all my knowledge and experience with many Albertans. There is probably no town of 500 that I haven't been in Alberta, so I know very well your counties, both of them probably crisscross your county as well, and you have lots of forest there. Next. Here's a list of the services. We provide arborist services, and it's range from pruning of the fruit, roses, and small trees. Pests, every year probably get over 1,000 each requests for the pest issues that the clients, all range of the clients is asking me. I'm also tree certified risk and hazard assessment track. So if you over there, anybody has a campgrounds or tree that is potential risk, I'm qualified. I'm able to perform assessment for you folks. And I'm going to mention that on my pruning presentation about the tree risk assessment. I do also tree appraisal and value assessment. For a small town, I provide the services of tree inventory and small town or urban forest management plans. And I'm not sure how much Clearwater County and Rocky View County has some local tree bylaws and policy and regulations. I do that as well. Many counties are hiring me for that purposes. I've been doing and developing probably 300 woodlot management plans, which is basically if you have a natural forest on your farm or land and you want to develop a management plan, either harvesting or reforestation design. I've done so many of them through my career. And agroforestry services, anything with the shelter belts and windbreaks and riparian and natural vegetation, I would be able to provide a technical knowledge and expertise. As I said, I have a 27 years experience working all of those areas, and still, as I said, I'm still learning every day. Okay, Bettina, next slide. Again, this is on the tree planting, and this presentation alone is usually an hour and a half, but I'm going to probably tonight just cover some of the key points because you might have some training down the road on the tree planting in the county, both counties, Mountain View and Clearwater County. If you have some question on the tree planting, they will be able to provide the services for you. I will cover some briefly topics. Those are 6 topics about if you want to plant the trees on your property. So next. First message, diversify. And again, throughout the night, and you please remember this, and I will tell you the reason why it is. The more you diversify, the healthier forest is going to be, the healthier trees is going to be, your property is going to be more valuable. And again, overall, as a whole ecosystem on your farm, on your acreages, the more species of the trees and shrubs that you have and plants, the better it is going to be. Again, please remember those are 3 words. And as lots of people, when they want to plant the trees, they always goes with 1 or 2 species. And I strongly recommend you not to do that. So the more tree species you plant, the better it is. Next. Here is one of my good friend, Terry Krause property. He is, if you take that highway toward to Penhold and going west, you're gonna go to the Ready River, Ready River, and there is a several acreage development in that area. Terry started, this was an empty lot, and he started it from scratch. And it's amazing what he developed in last 2008. So that was almost 13 years. The biggest thing I want to show you guys, if you look on the left corner of this of the screen, you're going to see the row of the spruce trees, and also on the bottom you also see the row of the spruce trees. So, but when you look at the Terry place, and that's in his acreages, there is probably over 50 different tree species that he planted. The beauty of that is, in the case you have a mountain pine beetle, spruce budworm, it's just south of you in the Rocky View counties, and most likely spruce beetle is going to come as well. So if you have one species in your property that either insects and diseases come, or weather-related issues, or drought, or salt, or all kinds of things, it will wipe out entire your shelter belt if you have one species. So imagine now on this left corner you have these spruce trees, and all of them can die, and that property is going to be no trees. It's going to be wide open. In this Terry case, if you have some spruce trees in the property, and if one or two spruce trees dies, all the rest of the trees is going to be okay. There is no single event, drought or hail or flood or insect and disease that is going to take all of the trees in his property. Something is going to stay there. Something is going to be alive. And this is the key. This is the really key for if you have a property, either acreage or farm, plant as many as possible species. Next slide, Bettina. And here is on his property how many species he planted. Look at this, 52 different species, and he has from poplar trees to oak to pine to dogwood to all range of cherry trees, maydays, balsam fir, Alberta spruce, laurel leaf willow, juniper, raspberries, hazelnut, cotonaster, name it, Siberian elm. And again, he is not far away from you folks. You're just a little bit west of here. Now, if you go a little bit more further west, to Nordic, many of these species might not do well as in his place. But as you can see here, there is no insects on disease or hail or salt or chemicals that is going to kill all of these tree species. If you have only few of them, you're putting yourself in more danger when it comes to the trees. And that's why this message, diversity, is absolutely crucial. So imagine now some of you do have pine trees around your property and mountain pine beetle in your area. Most likely all of your pine trees is going to be gone. So can you imagine now your property with no trees around you? And that's the danger of the lots of people, don't considering planting the more trees and shrubs. So here is a prime example, which is not far away from you folks, that these things can be done. And he started from literally from the pasture. So it was nothing but the open pasture in this particular case. So, but again, it's 52 different species, and all of them doing well. He has some mortality, no doubt about that. But he said to me, Tosha, all of them are doing okay, and thriving, matter of fact. And he has a way less problem with any diseases and insects that he's compared to his neighboring lands. His properties thrive with the wildlife. Bees, birds, animals, name it. He has everything there in such a small property. So again, if anything from tonight, if you guys wanted to plant the trees, please remember this. Please, that diversity, that is really going to help you out. Next, Bettina. What is the value of the trees to your property? And there is, I don't know, probably 10 or 12 of them I listed. There is probably even more. Every single of them, it can apply to your property. One of the biggest things lately that is happening, if you have a place like Terry, or where you have a nice and good trees, your real estate property value goes almost up to 20%. So there is economics there. So the more trees and shrubs you have, and the more trees you have on your property, your real estate is going to go up. Last year, I did a project with Alberta Real Estate Foundation. They hired me to literally promote the trees and value of the trees to the smaller rural towns. And now start people realizing, hey, it takes a long time to grow the trees, but there is also financial incentives to have a trees. And again, you can pick and choose whatever you want to have these values, from noise to the dust effect, to sequester carbon, to protect your livestock, increase the yields, reduce the summer heat and cooling effects. I mean, all of them, if you have a trees, is pretty much, folks, given to you. All of this. So the more trees they have, the more values you're going to have. Next. This is on the farm level. This is my ideal farm. As you can see, folks, you have a farm up on the top of the screen. Natural creek going around, riparian area is there, and you have 2 windbreaks as well. And today, technology with lots of farmers, the GPS units and everything else, you can go do farming and do the cropping in an area like this. Lots of folks said to me, Toso, I might lose some of the land due to shade and everything else. USA folks, and I was participating in that project, they find out across the Great Plains, United States, doesn't matter what crop it is, if you have trees on your land, on the farm, on the crop, or on the where you produce the crop, you will have an increase of your overall of the crop between the 5 and 35%. Doesn't matter, is it corn or wheat or barley or whatever. You will lose some of the yield close to the trees, but you will gain overall in the whole field. Same thing with the livestock. If you have trees around your livestock, it's gonna save you in the fodder and the food of the livestock and keeping them just warm. So there is economics incentives to have trees. And again, this is one of them. The farm level, this is my favorite farm. Beautiful. And again, many people already have this, something like this in Alberta. Next. To the water, you have a great land care program that Bettina is leading, and one of the major activities is the clean water. And she has an incredible ability to take all of the bad stuff from the water and store and filter the water. I talked probably over 20,000 farmers in Alberta through my career, and I always ask them this question. How was this place 30, 40, 50 years ago? And many people said, I have trees, I have some pasture, open place, or whatever. One thing every single farmer told me, the moment you remove the trees, it's the moment that you're losing the water. And many of the farmers said to me, when we clear the trees, I start noticing that we have to drill further down for the water. So tree has an incredible ability to, when it comes to the water, not just purify the water, but store the water, regulate the local climate. And the other thing what happened in other parts of Alberta, lots of farmers clear the trees. And so you have snow drifts that end up in our ditches. And when they melts, huge amount of water actually wrecking our ditch, our culverts, our bridges, and that's cost infrastructure. When I was talking to Lethbridge last year, everywhere when they removed the windbreak on the field, that's where the snow was drifted, and that's where the local infrastructure, road, culverts, and bridges were wiped out. Same thing happened in Smoky Lake, in Filaire. And counties are spending millions of dollars to fix it, just because the people removed the windbreaks. So trees contribute to overall well-being of the ratepayers. If you have trees, you're not going to have a problem also with the infrastructure as well. So next. I have several slides. I have to, with sad news, to tell all of the Albertans and Canadians. Prime Minister Harper in 2013 shut down Agroforestry Center in Indian Head. 1994, Premier Ralph Klein shut down shelterbelt program. Right now, folks, in Canada, we have absolute zero research when it comes to the trees on the prairies. There is a research that is going on on the big forest up north, but nothing on the trees on private land, zero. In the same coin, United States, they are pumping millions and millions of dollars, especially now with the Biden administration. The more trees is going to be planted on the private land in the United States than ever. Their goal is to plant 1 trillion trees in next decade. So what they have at this study, this is from North Dakota, a friend of mine who works in North Dakota. They do the real research, real study. And right now, all of my information of cutting edge information about agroforestry, trees, urban forestry, arborist issues, all of them literally is coming from the United States. We have nothing in Alberta or Canada whatsoever. And again, this is just one of the examples. What is the effect of the shelter belt or windbreaks on the field, where the snow goes, how much snow goes, what you can do, what is the density and everything. And look, this is in North Dakota, and they do the research on the live. This is on the real world, and they take the data, put into the wind tunnel. They include the military folks and say we want a wind tunnel to figure out what's happened with this, because it's cost them money over there for the infrastructure when they have a snow drift. So unfortunately, we have nothing like this. But again, this is one of the examples of the values of the windbreaks. Next. Now, this is 11 steps. If you want to plant the trees right now, this spring, or next, or whatever, or fall, matter of fact, this is what you need to do. I'm going to go briefly over those steps, and really have to put a check mark. Your county folks has lots of resources; they can help you out. But those are steps for either you plant the small little trees or the big caliper trees, what we call big trees, like 10 foot. This is the things what you need to do. Next. Okay. This road is 567 just west of the Airdrie. I gave the talk to Rocky View County a month ago or something like that. First thing you have to look before you decide for any trees, anything like that, is you look environmental condition on the site that you want to plant the trees. What does it include? First, you have to know the soil. Not every tree is going to do the good on the same soil. Good example, if you have a sandy soil, pine is going to do the perfectly fine, but the spruce is going to suffer. Balsam poplar is going to suffer. So on the clay, elm is going to do fine. Hybrid poplar is going to do fine. But pine might not do as fine on a heavy clay. So first figure out what kind of soil you have. Then look, if you look in the picture here, you have exposure. This is a eastern exposure. More sunlight, very few trees. Go on the western exposure, you're gonna find a more colder, more trees, most likely spruce. So pay attention where the sun, because tree, like any other plant, looking where the sun is. The more some species like more sun, again like pine, some species like a fir or spruce, they don't require as much sun. They can grow under the shade perfectly fine. So pay attention where it is. If you have a house or other infrastructure where the shade is, what's the prevailing wind? In your area, probably west, northwest, but you also might get the southwest wind as well. So each of those tree species is gonna respond differently. Topographic features, hills, creeks, lakes, sloughs, name it. If you look at this photo, you can see all of them there. So it's eastern exposure. You have a little creek. You have on top of the hill is probably heavy clay. Then on the slopes, you have a better drainage. And birds might like that more than anything. So slopes are also very important. Depression and ridges. All of the other little microclimate is crucially important, because many people, what they do, when they plant the trees, especially in the shelter belts, they put one row of the trees and it go up and down, sloughs, wet, and then come 3 or 4 years later, 30% of the trees are dead, because the trees on the bottom of that little hill died, on the top might be doing fine. So it's very important that you pay attention to this. Drainage, where the water runs. There's a water-loving trees, there is a non-water-loving trees and shrubs. And if you know that you have a more water, you plant the trees that love more water. If you know that you have a more drier, you plant the tree that is more drier. The water quality and quantity, this is very important if you water the trees. First message I said to people about watering, have you tested your water? How much you have a maybe potential sodium in your water that you can kill the trees. Especially folks in Mountain View County, you do have some of the saline soils a little bit on the east of the county side. Again, pay attention to the quality of your water, because if you're going to water the trees. And the most and not least important, visit, drive around, walk around, whatever you have, visit already established the trees and stop by and ask people who has 70, 80 years old spruce trees or any trees on their yard, how did you do it? How the trees, what's the name of the trees? How did it grow? What is the response? Because nothing tells you better than local trees that have survived for so long. That will be a really good indication, this can grow or not. So really, this is a really first and crucial step before you even think to plant any trees. Do the little bit of homework. Next, Bettina. And again, this is a just example. If you look at folks in the south parts of this photo, there is a big house, probably $1 million house, very few trees planted, roughly planted. Then you have a north of it. If you want to design and protect, you have to pay attention to what I said before. You have to look for soil, you have to look drainage, you have to look where the wind's coming from, you have to look what kind of trees is growing there. All of that has to do that. And again, good tool is, you have aerial photos or you have a Google Earth that you can really zoom it and then design what you want. Next. Physical structures. I personally am sick and tired to seeing along across Alberta, you have a wonderful shelter belts and power line above it. And company is just topping the trees over and over, and eventually the tree dies. Same thing with if you have a below ground. If you have a surge system and you don't pay attention, you plant the tree, you're going to inherit the problems. Gas and propane lines, if you have a sidewalks and pathways, all of those things, just do the quick checklist. And I think the county office, I produced that in 2007 checklist. You can go and just put a check mark. Hey, I pay attention to this and go to the next. Okay, next slide. Local regulations. If you have on the Highway 21, folks, you have to be 150 feet away from the road. That's the law. Same thing with the house. Your insurance might say, hey, I planted the trees 10 feet away. Well, your insurance now is not going to be happy about it, because that tree can fall and damage your car, vehicles, and God forbid people. So make sure that some of the regulatory folks are addressed. Just say, hey, yeah, this is what we have to be away from highway. Otherwise, you might inherit some of the problems. Also, pay attention to some of the exotic trees, and especially caragana. I strongly right now tell you, do not plant caragana on your property, or Russian olive. They are not under the weed act yet, but they may end up there. So be careful with caragana and Russian olive. Okay, next. Tree shrub selection. Sky's limit. I have 24 slides. If you want to decide the pine tree, there is probably 8 or 10 pine trees that you can plant on your property. If you want a spruce tree, there is 6 or 7 spruce trees, different species they can plant. There is 3 different elms. There is 6 different linden trees. There is 3 different oak trees. There is 8 different maple trees. There is gazillions of shrubs, and you've seen that in Terry Place. In many ways, sky's limit. So you can plant lots of things. Now, the second rule is right tree on right place. So if you have a sandy soil and you put the spruce, you set yourself for the failure. If you put the pine, they love it. If you have a too wet area and you put the spruce in, you put the pine in that wet area, you set yourself for the failure. So this rule, right tree in right place, requires some knowledge a little bit, and it's going to save you money and headaches. Think about this. Where is the best way to plant this tree? Next. Now, again, good tree on the wrong spot. You have that big tree next to the houses. An insurance company, of course, is going to scream at you, or gonna jack up the price of your insurance. because look at that, how massive that tree is to that building. Then on the further down, you have power lines that is constantly damaging your trees. Then you have on the right side, you see this Swedish aspen right next to the building. And I tried to figure out why on earth people do that. That tree has a, number one, short lifespan, probably 20 years, planted next to that building. And when during the summer heats, all of the heat of that cement is going to go to the trees and create and damage the trees. Why put, you can put somewhere else further away. Putting the trees that have an extensive root system where you can damage the pathways. Putting the tree closer that can fall down on damage the properties. I can go on and on how many times you put a nice tree into the wrong spot. And again, this is just one of the examples what people do. Under the power line, you cannot plant a spruce or pine, but there's a gazillions of shrub species that you will never gonna reach the top of the power line and still have your shelter belts in protection. So again, little homework. Next. If you have a saline soils, this is a list of the species. This is actually a presentation I did in Willowview in Clearscombe. They asked me, and again, Caragana, if you only can plant Caragana somewhere in Oyen, in that area I would prefer. Russian old, not anywhere, to be honest. If you have a saline soil, here is on the left side, you have a list of those species that you'll be able to plant and shrubs. On my blog, on my website, you would be able to find this information as well. So if you know that you have a saline soil, here is some of the options. Okay, next. Here is a wonderful, wonderful tools that majority of all Alberta tree nurseries have it. It's called Plant Search Tools. In this tool, folks, you can pick, do you want a tree? Do you want an evergreen tree? Do you want a flowering tree? Do you want a roses? Do you want a hedges? What kind of heights is that? What kind of foliage type you have? What kind of roots you want to have? On and on. And you have below it's something called advanced search that give you even more options. And you said, I want a coniferous that is going to be 35 feet tall, that is going to be a blue color. And this software is going to list you all of the tree species that you require. Or I want just species that is on the sandy soil, and they will list you all of the trees and shrubs that are suitable for that sandy soil. It's a free software. This is in the Eagle Lake Tree Nursery. You can go there and use this software. I use this one, and I use the Mill Creek in Edmonton. Both of them, they have one is the south, one is the north. I go over there and click it. Again, this is not endorsement of the Toso Tree Nursery whatsoever, but it's a wonderful software that is produced fellow in Winnipeg. So use this software to pick which tree species you want. Next. Again, tree forms, pay attention to this. People sometimes plant a tree that really not realizing how big it can be or what the shape is going to be. And again, that software gives you that option as well. All of that forms are in that software. I said, I want a conical or I want a vase. You can select the tree species and shrubs that you want. Next. Shrubs. The amount of flowering shrubs, including that Caragana on the north corner, what you see on this photo, sky's limit. This will gonna charge. If you wanna put the fruit trees, you're gonna have a fruit. If you don't want to put fruit trees, you're gonna have a variety of the bees and the insects and birds and on and on. And overall, also you can create now in Alberta, plant some of the shrub that is gonna start flowering in May, all the way to the September, like a potentilla or cinquefoil. Cinquefoil flower in September, and some of them start in May. So, and throughout the whole summer, you might have a flowering shrubs and trees, right now in Alberta. So be creative. Next. How to take care of the newly planted trees. Do the site prep, plant correctly. 8 out of 10 problem with the trees, people don't plant them correctly. And I'm going to show you how to do with two types of trees. Weed them properly. If you don't do the weed control, you're wasting the money and time. Mulch. Remember, mulch your trees. Mulch is going to be saving your trees in many, many ways. And it's relatively cheap, but it's one of the best things you can do. Water correctly, water regularly, and I'm going to mention that. And don't fertilize. Okay, don't fertilize unless you know that you have a deficiency. And don't prune, and I'm going to talk about pruning later tonight, unless you're necessary. Pruning, I said over and over, even though I'm an arborist and I'm doing business, I said most of the tree doesn't need the pruning. And there is a reason why you need the prune, and I'm going to mention in my later on presentation. Next. Site prep, you have three choices: mechanical, chemical, or no site prep at all. Next. Again, chemical and tilling. Look at on that right corner, as it said photo Terry Kraus. That was in 2008. Remember, folks, that photos of on my perfect acreages? That was Terry, not a single tree there. And he built everything. You don't need to sometimes do what Terry does. You can go what is in the central picture. You till only 3 feet and you plant the trees. On the left corner is using the chemicals. Roundup, take the grass off, you can plant the trees. And on the bottom is a friend of mine in Barhead, on the orchard, he used the boat. Okay, it's option. Whatever you have equipment or you don't, or you have a chemicals or you don't like chemicals, it's up to you. Next. Again, be creative. This is recommended spacing recommendation. It's just recommendation, nothing but that. And you can see on the right photo what Terry did versus what his neighbor did. There's no line, there's nothing. He planted the trees and created something what is in. I always said in Mother Nature, nothing has a straight line unless human built it, period. As an engineer myself, forest engineer, every time when I look in the nature, there is no straight line. But we as a human, we love straight lines. So don't go in straight lines, be creative. Next. Stock. You can go small planting stock. You can have a cuttings, or you're gonna two of the bottom. The one with the burlap and baskets are $300. One in the potted material is $100. Other one on the top is $1 or $2, and cuttings could be again $1 or $2. So depending on your pocket, what you want to plant. Okay, next. Well, lots of people, especially acreage folks. So you buy the big house, you want to build a big house, a $1 million house, and they want to go with the bigger material. Again, thanks to my American friends, they always said, big tree become little, and little tree become big. What they're finding out, when you planted a smaller tree or smaller potted trees, they develop roots way faster, established way faster, and very quickly actually outgrow the tree that you have on the bottom picture. So this is where you have to, this picture on the bottom picture is at $300. The trees are on the potted, you can get 40, 50, 60, 100. And they are much more adapted to, might be much more easier to plant and get way better and have a way less mortality than the one big one. So think about it. Next. Handling. The biggest thing lots of people do, they buy the trees, they go to groceries, they forget about trees in their pickup trucks or who knows where. And when they bring the trees home, many of those trees are dead. So make sure if you buy the trees, take them, put them in the cold place, in the storage, plant only trees how many you can plant. And don't try to say this year I'm going to plant 1,000 trees and you really maybe can only handle 100. Don't do that to yourself. I'd rather take this year 100 trees, next year 200. Because don't forget, one thing is just planting, but then you have to do the weed control. Then you have to do the watering. So it's required time. The more trees you have, the more work you have. Next. Here is one of the common, very, very common mistakes. There is a website. I sent this website below in this picture, almost probably 2,000 people. It's a video. It tells you how to do the proper planting the tree. So you buy this caliper tree. For both cases, dig the hole that is 2 to 3 times wider than the root ball. So if many people buy the potted trees and they dig the only hole where the potted tree can fit, don't do that to your tree. because the roots is going to have heck of the time to get out of that hole, especially if you have a heavy clay. So what you do, you create wide hole, work with the soil on the slopes, and then you put the tree in the center. And on that blue line, that's how deep you plant the trees. So if you take a trunk and the roots is start growing, that connection, that line in connection between the roots and trunk, that's the depth that you should plant it. It's called the root crown, or we call the root flare. That's the depth you plant. You don't bury further down trunk or stem, because it's gonna rotten. So you, every time when you pull the tree, you're gonna see where the root starts, where the trunk starts. That line is that where's the line is gonna be equal to the surface of your soil, of your land, or the soil. And that's how you do properly. 80 or 90% of the people plant too deep, and the roots struggle, especially in the clay. They cannot go through the clay, young roots, and you kill your trees already in the plant. Every time when I see the young tree died, 90% is improper plant. Especially guys with the spade, they go with about 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 feet spade, and that spade create a glaze around. There's no way roots is gonna go through this. And you just dump this tree over there, finish, end of the story. That tree is gonna have a heck of the time to keep going. And that's why they stay in that root ball. And then after 6 or 7 years, you see the tree die or start decline, because the roots never ever left the root ball. So do the proper job. I always said, problem is you take a $300 tree and you put in a $5 worth hole. No, put a $300 tree in $200 worth hole, properly designed hole, and dig up properly. So please do remember this. And again, there is a video on this. Go, every time when I send this video, everybody said, from now on, I know how to plant a tree. It's like a 2-minute video, and it's straightforward. Next. Weed, my message is to you, if you don't weed, if you neglect, your survival rate of the trees is going from 100% to 20, period. And I don't care what kind of weed control you're going to use it, you have to do the weed control. Next. This is a perfect ideal weed control that I always take this photo. The fellow did a tilling, and on top of that used the plastic mulch and planted the trees. Incredible. But realistically, how many of us really do this? Very few people. So next. And no weed control. His neighbor planted the tree same time as the previous guy, and this guy was busy farming. The other guy was not. And this is, if you can find the tree, good luck. He totally forgot. He was busy. He said, I planted a tree, I didn't have time to do the weed control, and this is what ended up. That's the way it is. So you got to do weed control. Next. Picture on the left, it was, I think I took in the Montview County. The only thing what is wrong here is when you have a tree 6, 7, 8, 10 feet, you don't do any more mechanical control. You don't do any weed control, nothing. They're done, they're big. So what this person was doing, he was tilling and killing the roots of the other trees. And that's why you have some of the empty spots, because it was constantly killing the roots. I always said, once tree reach 3 or 4 feet, stop it. Let them survive in the mother nature. They will take care of the weeds. Next. Chemicals, if you like the chemicals, you can use it. Contact your county to know exactly how to use and use them properly, especially for the acreage folks, if they never did any farming. There is lots of mishaps that lots of people don't know how to use the chemicals. So you have a great staff in the county, both of the counties. They have a great people to can help you out with the chemicals and use the chemicals. Next. Plastic mulch. You can get it, very effective, works like a charm, but don't forget, you're going to have a plastic in the soil. And down the road, you might pull it out, but definitely very effective way of controlling the weeds. Next. Bush mats, small, like a foot by foot. You can put it You have organic one, what organic, made of hemp, work very made of pulp and hemp, can work if you want to do that option. Sheep rescue between the rows, work like a charm. Next, mulch. This is really something. If you plant the tree small or big, do the mulch. Mulch is a really amazing thing that is going to save the roots of your trees and help you develop. And it's going to help you with the watering. It's going to help you with weeds. It's going to help you not to damage the trees with the weed whacker or lawnmower. On the picture on the left, again, go back to my friend Americans. They did a study how much roots are developed under the grass, how much under the mulch. And you can see on the right, when you have a mulch, you have a more tree roots. When you have on the left, you have a less tree roots. Period. The last thing with the mulch, always create donut, like donut on the top of the picture that you see. Never ever create a volcano. Period. So those are two things remember. Don't create a volcano, create the donuts, and put whatever mulch you have. Next. This is a study by a friend of mine in using the whole range of the different weed control, and the results are next slide. And basically, what my good friend don't show in his hands, where he showed his hands, trees are same trees, same time planted, same everything. One has a weed control, one doesn't. So the one that doesn't have a weed control is the one that is show his hands. So you look at this larch, it's 3 feet tall with no weed control, and on the right side you have a probably 14 feet tall larch. Same thing with the choke cherry. Okay, so whatever weed control you want to take it, this is effective, and you have to take probably 3, 4, maybe 5 years. In some cases, maybe only 2, but you have to take care of the trees in the first few years. Next, follow up, watering. Next, keep going with the next slide. Watering. Okay, last night I have a presentation about tree growing and watering. Whatever you do, the frequency is most important thing you do. Water them frequently. Don't try to put the water close to the trunk. Further away, the better it is. Again, mulch is your best friend if you can do it. How to check how much water? You take a metal probe or screwdriver or something that you can poke in the soil, put inside, pull it out, and if you see the soil on that metal probe or screwdriver, oh, still there's lots of moisture. If there's no soil there and it's dry, guess what? You need to do the watering. How much? Depending on the tree species. I'm gonna go show you next slide, if you don't mind. Here is done from the University of the Minnesota. Americans, again, we don't have in Canada. This is what they figured out. And don't forget, this is Minnesota. I went to Montana, they have a very similar rules. I went to Oregon, they have a little bit similar rules. But overall, they said, first 2 weeks, try to, in 2 weeks, try to water daily. Now, if you have lots of rain, of course, you're not gonna water. And then in week 3 to 12 weeks, maybe twice. After 12 weeks, roots should go. How much? Again, this is an example of Minnesota. I don't have, magic formula for Alberta because nobody did study. We don't know. You might use these rules, test it, maybe work, maybe doesn't. But again, don't forget, this is Minnesota. This is not Alberta or Mountain View County or Clearwater County. This is just to show that somebody did a good job. And maybe you can follow. It's up to you. Next. Then you do all of the good work, and then you're gonna have a wildlife. You have a lawnmower, you have a sapsuckers, you have a moose, deer, porcupine, beaver, wires, all kind of things that you're gonna kill those trees. So we have to do some of the follow-up, and I'm gonna talk that on the next presentation. Next. Protection. You can use the tubes, wire, dogs, electrical fence. One of them on the right corner around the tree is extremely very cheap, powerful thing that you put around the tree that if you, especially for guys who like to do the every blade of grass around the trunk, that's what you do. Put that little plastic guard and it's going to protect the trees. And I'm going to talk about that in next presentation. Next. In a nutshell, find out what is the environmental conditions you have before you do any plant. Do the proper planning. You take aerial photos, take whole kind of visit already property. Don't forget about diversity. The more you plant, the better it is. Do the proper plant and proper site preparation. Do some kind of weed control. Water as you need it. Learn about the local things, what you need. Test your water though. Test your water for sodium. And last and not least, please visit your trees once a week. Monitor, monitor, monitor. If you don't, lots of people call me in the past, Tosha, my trees are dead. What I'm gonna do now? Nothing. Cut them down and burn them and plant a new one. Why you didn't come before the tree died? Most of the time you can prevent some of the stuff if you go and visit your trees. Not just, hey, suddenly I have a problem. My tree, like last night, one lady said she's in High Prairie up north. Tosha, my tree in July, a large tree, no needles. And then by the August, needles show up. And I said, either your husband spray with aerial spray and kill them, or most likely there's what happened is the insect called large sawfly totally defoliated her big tree. She didn't even notice that I have a small little bug to do that. So monitor, monitor, monitor. Once a week, just drive by, walk by, ride by, whatever you want. Just check it out how they're doing. Okay, next. Okay, you're gonna see that in all of my presentations. Bettina, here is the thing. If anybody has a question or one or two questions on this topic, let people, unmute yourself, ask about this. If not, we can jump into the insect and diseases. So if anybody has an urgent question or on the chat, please unmute yourself and say, Tosha, how about this?
Tosha?
Yes.
What about frost? Like I'm worried about, can these trees freeze in the winter? Because sometimes we get these sub-zero temperatures. Like, how do you detect that?
Ooh, okay. How long where do you live, if I may ask you?
I'm
iPhone.
That's fine. It's Michelle, and I'm just north of Rocky Mountain House.
Oh, North Rocky Mountain. So how long do you live there? How long you live
in my area? I've only been here since 2005. Okay.
The best thing you can do, talk to the local farmers, and they will tell you how far frost can go. Okay. And I know very well in that area, I've seen the frost in June. Okay. I experienced that. Nothing you can do about that. So how do you find out when your trees get frost? Usually in the spruce and pine, you have like a drooping, like a branch, a new growth. That new growth of that is start growing, they usually have a drooping on that. Now, when you have a winter frost, and I'm going to talk about that next presentation, when during the winter time and you have a wonderful tree or especially spruce tree and half of the tree is brown, that's what you have a called winter burn. And next presentation, I can talk about what it means. Michelle.
Thank you very much.
Okay, anybody else? One more question. Nope. Okay, now we're going to jump into the pests. Okay. Hey, Bettina, you're doing a marvelous job. Okay, go next slide. You don't need to hear about me. Keep going. Keep going. Next slide. Keep going. Okay. Here is, okay, go back. Okay, there. Folks, here is I start my presentation on the pests and also on the pruning. I always start treatment without diagnosis is malpractice. You folks calling me many times, people tell me, Tosha, I have a problem with this. And what can I spray with? And I right away brush off nothing until I figure out what it is. So don't guess. even after 20-something years, Bettina sent me some of the trees and said, Tosha, what the heck it is? And I'm scratching my head. I say, I don't know. Try this, try that, figure out what it is. And then I can send it to the lab to figure out if there are any diseases. Then I contact all of my other friends and say, this is what possibly it is. But again, don't try to jump into the conclusion, but really figure out what it is. And I'll show you in the other slides really what it means. Again, diversify, you got that message. Most of the insects, viruses, fungi, and bacteria are beneficial. 99% of them. So when you use the chemicals, you spray all of them, you kill 99% of the good one. Not just bad one, you also kill good one. Understand the difference between the symptoms and cause. And I'm going to show you what's the difference. Don't use the chemicals unless you really, really know what it is. And the second thing, you really, really know how to use it. I will not use the chemicals because I don't know how to. I'm not certified. I don't know what is it. Bettina is very, very well certified. She will know how to use it. And Lorelei is know how to use it. I don't. So make sure that if you ever going to use, you know what you're using. Don't panic. Monitor, monitor, monitor. That's what will save you lots of grief. Educate yourself. And probably pruning is one of the only tools that you might have. And I'm going to talk about that later on. Again, with environmental issues, most avoidable. What it means, environmental issues, salt and chemicals. I told you guys, I got like 1,000 requests a year. 90% of the problems are salt and chemicals. And other 10%, all kind of things, insects and diseases and everything else. So those are two things that really pay attention. Next slide. Again, you got that message. Next. I already told you a story about that. Keep going. Okay. Encourage your wildlife habitat, beneficial wildlife. Folks, protect those wetlands. Protect the little bluff of the trees. Protect the what is naturally over there. They are hubs for all of the good and beneficial insects. They are hubs. They are home for all of the goodies. And that's where they go from natural wetland to control the bad ones. My brother works for Cargill, and he works in canola. And even now, big companies, they're realizing, Canola Council of Canada, matter of fact, they said, we need to keep those wetlands and shelter belts and windbreaks because they have so many good insects and diseases and viruses that controlling the bad one in canola field. So it's extremely important if you can protect that, protect it, because those are one really hot spots on your farm. So protect them. Next. This is a flowering period in Alberta. As I told you folks, you have a green elder that starts flowering in April, and then probably all the way potentilla, which is not mentioned here, that is all the way to September. So you can see that you can plant all of the different species on the left side and what time they're flowering. All the 30 years. The more diversity you have, the more this graph is going to be on the angle. And again, you can see, you can plant the hawthorn, or they're going to flower in June all the way to July. Okay. Big willow all the way to end of July. And narrow meadowsweet all the way to August. Snowberry mid-July. So you can play with some of the trees and shrubs when they flower. And then, again, that's good for the beneficial insects, and they're good for also birds and other wildlife. Next. That same thing apply for the plants. The folks in the old college, they did a good job. And again, this is where we get some of the flowering plants, not just shrubs and trees. Okay, next. Now, as I said, 99% of the insects and viruses and bacteria are beneficial. If you look this ground beetle, they control so many different bad insects. Robber fly can catch almost 2,000 bad insects. That one which is on the left on the wasp. This insect is so amazing. So you see that on the that is on the tree bark. They have a on top of the on top of that they inject. They know exactly where the egg of the bad insects are. They go through the bark. They have a on a ovipository. They have like a little zinc. They melt a little bit bark. They know exactly where the pupa or egg. They inject their egg, and throughout growth of the new wasp, it kills the bad one. Fungi, we have a no like folks. To give you an example, there is no tree or shrub in the world, anywhere in the world, that is not in symbiotic relationship with the fungi. As a matter of fact, no blade, no grass, no anything with that is not symbiotic with some fungi. So 99% of the good. Now, again, I'll show you some of the bad ones, but this is what it is. It's 95% of the is the good one. This is where the people, when they do spraying, they kill not just bad one, but they kill also good one, which is 99%. Okay, next. This fellow American biologist, he wrote this, and that's what we humans do all the time. We screw up something, we try to fix it by engineering, and we inherit all of the problems. I can tell you as an engineer, we build the roads in some of the area we should never build. We destroyed our wildlife habitat or forest, and we inherit flooding. Or we take a forest out, and then we have the drought, and pay to our nose. And the same thing with the pests. When you kill natural enemies of the pests, you inherit their work. Pests comes in. Simple as that. Next. How big they are? 10% of the animal biomass are just ants alone. I always say, without these guys, we as a humanity, we wouldn't be functioning. A friend of mine told me, Doug, he said, Torsha, if we don't have insects within 2 months, entire humanity will be in gutter. Within a year, we wouldn't be able to breathe. And again, this is what this good beneficial insects and fungi do that for us, and viruses. Okay, next. Now, here is where is the bad and very ugly. Okay, you have a mountain pine beetle. This picture on the left is a mountain pine beetle under the microscope. As you can see, how does it look like? You know what is the northern thistle? Armillaria root rot is the killing some of the spruce tree. Salmonella definitely can poison us. And last and not least, that we live so far is the COVID. So 99% are good, but those guys on the bottom, they are bad and very ugly. And that's sometimes what we need to deal with. This is a definition. What is the pest? Unwanted or destructive organism. And again, that sometimes it costs our crops, costs our healthcare, costs our human lives. But again, I don't want you guys to keep, forget that still 99% are good. And we have to deal with that 1%. So next. So here is the symptoms. And again, I would show you the slide. So I'm going to go from top left corner all the way around. So this is a cedar elm, and the symptoms, it's brown. Okay, that's the symptom. The cause is a winter burn. On the chemical, when I get over there, it was brown. This farmer hired a professional air sprayer for his crop for years, and GPS got wrong in his airplane, flew over that and killed the 2 wonderful rows of the willow, and eventually his insurance has to pay quite steep penalty for this area. But the cause is the chemicals. You see the leaf rolling, could be millions of things, but it's insect roller. You see the spruce on the right corner that is brown or parts of the brown dead branches. The cause is the fungi. On the bottom, you see that this is 97th Street in Edmonton. Trees are scrubby and dying and miserable shape. The cause is salt. Fire blight, Again, that when you see the tree, you wake up in the morning, half of your tree is wiped out, or you have a mountain ash, whole tree is wiped out, brown, like somebody take it with a tiger torch and burn your trees. Again, the cause is a bacteria. Black knot, the cause is a fungi. Over there, griddling around the tree, well, you see the griddling, but what it is, porcupine. And then you have a woodpecker on the line. So this is where I always said to people jump into the conclusion with the symptoms. My job, or people who like myself, is find out the cause. And remember this, malpractice with the treatment without diagnosis is a malpractice. So if you have that where is a winter burn, some people is going to say, I don't like it, and probably it is deficiency in the soil, or my neighbor did something chemical, or etc. etc. No, it's not. It's a winter burn. So that's it's very important to distinguish those two things. Always look for the cause. Once we figure out cause, then we can figure out what we can do about it. Next. Again, this is also very important. I gave this to my folks that I train. Surrounding site assessment. Many times people send me a photo and it's just one branch. I say, I have no idea what it is. I need to see the whole tree. Once I see the whole tree, oh, you're in acreages, but you have a horses, you have a this. Oh yeah, I do. Oh, you're in farm and you have a neighbor who is spraying. Oh, how about salt? How about dust? How about cutting the grass? How about county are spraying for the weed control? Oh, I need a whole picture before I find out what is the cause. In the urban area, I said, okay, you have a 97th Street, busy street, exhaustion in the heat from the vehicles. Soil is miserable. Weed whacker and lawnmower, on and on and on and on. So I look everything before I find the cause, and based on cause, I can say this is what you can do. So all of the things that you see on the left, I go through my head and check mark. Is it this? Is it this? Is it? Yeah. And then I say, okay, let's pinpoint what's the problem. So I have to go to the whole site before I find out what's the cause. Next. What to look for? Relatively speaking, with insects, it's straightforward. You look in the needles, you see the chewing, you see the discoloration, you see the like a little tunnels inside. But you look again in those four things. You see the color changes. Is it chewed? Is it damaged? Is it all kind of things? But you look in the leaves, you look in the needles and conifers, you look the trunk, and you look the roots. And then I go to the check mark. I say, okay, on the bottom you see the roots, and you see that wound by the lawnmower, which is very common. That's the where your fungi comes in. Once you get the fungi comes in, most likely it's going to go to the root system, go to the trunk, and create a pile of problem. And eventually, that's what is going to kill the tree. Or porcupine on the trunk, when you see the griddle of the porcupine, they griddle around, and the tree cannot transport the water, go up and down, and if that doesn't kill the tree, fungi come in. Sometimes the trees and kill the tree. So there's lots of things I have to look for the close-up inspection. Okay, next. I got lots of phone calls and emails about galls. Those are, generally speaking, just cosmetics. They look ugly, they look scary, they look weird, they look all kinds of shapes. It's created by the viruses, bacteria, insects, deformation by the weather, all kinds of reasons. They were never going to kill the trees. They were never going to damage trees. Most of the time, it's actually good for the birds in winter time. They can use it or feed them in the summertime, but it's just cosmetic. So don't freak out about those. Next. Now I'm going to go to some of the pests. Spruce budworm is just south of you. So it's around the Black Creek area. And the provincial government declined that as infestation. Well, sorry, they did a survey and it's a high population of the spruce budworm. So they didn't close an infestation, but they did the aerial survey. And the folks in the Rocky View County told me what's the situation over there. I think this is the second year. The best way to recognize is they have a really black head and well, it's brownish color. sometimes it's golden color larvae. Usually they start feeding on last week in May on the older needles, and then they go on the new needles. But watch for them in the end of the May, beginning of the June. And they usually start on the top of the tree and they're going downwards on the side branches. There is if you have a small trees and pick the larvae, that's okay. If you also have a small tree, you can go to the store and buy a biological insecticide, which is basically bacteria. You can buy in, I think, the Home Hardware or PV Mart. I think they are selling that. It's called BTK, Bacillus thuringiensis kurtzaki, and you can spray and try it. So on the big trees, it usually takes 5 years of the every year infestation to kill your big tree. Usually, sometimes but that the problem with this one, if they defoliate the spruce tree over and over, then other insect is going to come, then other bad fungi might come. But again, just watch in your area. Next, spider mite. It's the best way sometimes you do, you take a sheet of paper, a white sheet of paper, shake on your branch on that, you're gonna see them, and it's a mite. The best way you can do is heavy rain or soap with the water, blast them. If we are gonna have this year dry, last year was cold and wet and miserable. If we're gonna have this year dry, most likely you're gonna have this one. And again, the best way is, again, heavy spray with the water and try to knock them off. You can put the soapy water or some insecticide you can buy. You in your area, you have lots of wind, they might reduce that. And they go all the way from May till September, like mid-September. Again, beneficial wildlife is helped out. Next. Yellow-headed spruce sawfly, definitely in your area. Usually go to the trees up to 30 feet on the sunny side. If the sunny exposure, they will defoliate. And the best thing you can do, again, if you can do by the larvae hands squishing, again, try to blast them off with a high pressure hose as well. In the case if you really need to use melatonin, that's one of the options. And they can come year after year, no doubt about that. So just monitor for this one, and it's very common. Next, this one in last 5 years I got from Innisfail, Red Deer, Edmonton, Brazil, and your area as well. It's constantly what it does. It's kill the top of the spruce tree. Even though it's called white pine weevil, but goes on the spruce pretty much alone. The only thing you can do is pruning. If you go look those trees and you're gonna see the little holes on the top of the leader, go as low as those holes are, cut it, put in a bucket, and you're gonna see there like 3 or 4 side branches. If you have a 3, take 2 of them and leave 1. If you have a 4, again take 3, leave the one, and that 1 is gonna take a new leader. There is some chemicals. It's extremely expensive and it's not as effective for that way. Next, Addertide. It's one of those. Again, it's more cosmetics than really. This is where I said to people, you take this one, you can take them out, put in a bucket, and if you have kids or grandkids, tell them to cut in half. You're gonna see inside insects. It's just cosmetics. It's really never ever gonna. I've seen my tree 2 years ago has probably, and my tree is what, 30 feet tall, has probably 2,000 of these. Now nothing. They're just gone. So don't worry about this one. Next. This one is in your area. This one is obviously deadly. You will have a workshop on that. There is this verbenon that if you have a few pine trees or in the shelter belt, it is pheromone that is basically trying to confuse the beetle not to come to that tree and keep them away. Effectiveness depending how many beetles do you have in the surrounding area. It's spreading east, spreading south. again, with this verbenone, try to protect. Through my businesses, I struck a deal with one Quebec company. We might be able to provide, as myself, be a distributor of this verbenone for the mountain pine beetle. Hopefully within a few weeks we're gonna announce that, and it definitely might help, but it doesn't have a guarantee it's gonna protect your trees, because it's simply, if you have thousands or not millions of small little beetle, they go after the tree. And I've seen in the Peace River how desperate they are. They go sometimes after the small spruce tree. It is like that we as a human start eating the grass. That's how sometimes they can be desperate. Watch out. You will guys have a talk, as Bettina said, so I would strongly attend. Lots of folks on the right side, when I said the not mountain pine beetle, it's confusing with other one, which is very common, and it's of course not deadly as the mountain pine beetle. So I'm not going to spend more time on mountain pine beetle, because you're going to have a workshop. So if you guys attend this one, you might attend that one and get more information about this. Next, this is where it is, and you are now a moderately successful, and so whatever that means, it's moving south. It's definitely moving south, and I don't think so we're going to stop this in Saskatchewan and all the way to the eastern Canada. I hope I'm wrong. Next. This is a northern pitch, so lots of people confuse this one with the mountain pine beetle. You can see it on the top pictures, like a little small tiny hole. If you really want to kill this one, take a sharp, like a wire, into that hole. You're gonna kill the larvae inside. It's really never gonna kill your trees. It's just sometimes ugly and a little bit weak in the trees, but unless you have some trees that you really mean to you, you might use some systematic chemicals, but generally speaking, it's not going to create a pile of problems. Next. This one is ravaging northern Alberta, all the way to from Bonneville to other places. It's all over. You guys are way overdue. Last time, I think it was 20, 30 years ago, or even more. Again, this insecticides is a BTK. And the good thing about this, they come usually, April, June, and by mid-July, or all trees leaf out. Now, here's where the danger of this one. If you have old forest, old aspen forest, and this come year after or 2 years, that forest is going to start dying out, and you end up with lots of dead trees. And from there, that's where you might go into the trouble of the fire. And the same thing with the mountain pine beetle. The danger of the mountain pine beetle is not just that you're losing the trees. The fire is going to follow, period. So again, watch for this one. If you have a young forest, generally speaking, it's going to survive. If you have a forest that is aspen forest at 80, 90 years old and it starts declining, this one can be finally in coffin for those trees. And then you end up with lots of dead material. And what I noticed in last 15 years, folks, we are getting fire in Sherwood Park area, Camrose, Parkland County, all of where the fire was never existed. All of them are forest fires, and majority of them are not in the coniferous. It's on the aspen forest. Up north in the Peace, last Chuck Lake fire, 75% was aspen because it was dead. So watch out for this one. That's all I can tell. Next. Poplar borer, it's extremely common. If you guys have an acreage, if you have especially Swedish aspen, which I do in my backyard, planted 30 years ago, this is a picture of my trees. I have a problem over in 2 trees, which is 10-inch, 10-inch diameter. I have over 5,000 of those holes, and tops are dead. As I said, it's generally speaking, it's not going to kill the tree, but it's going to definitely decline the tree, and would be able to reduce the. Nothing you can do about it, but be aware. And if you have a Swedish aspen, and this one, your Swedish aspen is going to decline very quickly. And again, really not much you can do for this one. Next, bronze birch borer. It's ravaging city of Edmonton in the last 15 years. This one is relatively preventable. Where this one happened, usually start from the top and making the holes, and the D-shaped holes that you can see on the bottom photo, D-shaped holes, and you have to do the pruning, whatever you see this hole. But the best thing you can do, water your birch, water your tree in the spring. This is the only time I'm gonna tell you, if you have something like this, water your tree, put a little bit fertilizer to try to fight roots, to fight and get a new growth. And the last but not least, water them in the fall. All of those immature tree, folks, water 2 weeks before the freezing. That's what is going to save the most of your trees. So always well watered. So if you have a birch, you might you might prolong life of this birch probably for 20, 30 years if you do watering and put a little bit fertilizer and prune as well. Next. Birch leaf miner. This year we have outbreak in Edmonton, and it's can take all of the leaves. It's a miner. Generally speaking, if we have a year after year after year, then yeah, I can definitely weaken the birch tree and kill them. But again, it's a birch. Use the same thing. If you got this one, water, soil very well, and do the fertilizer a little bit, and it should go away. Next. Oyster shell scales. It's absolutely notorious if you have a cotonasters, dogwoods, and several others. Usually this time of year is probably the best if you can use the horticulture oil and spray it. And that's sometimes a very effective way. If you have too many of them, cut them to the ground, burn it, and try to get a new growth, generally speaking. Again, apply horticultural oil. Ladybugs love them. Lacewings as well. Again, pruning. And again, if you most likely this time of year where the temperature are just above the ground, we got the snow in Edmonton in the last 2 days, and it's cold. Probably within a week or two, if you have a few of them, you can spray with the horticultural oil and try to control them. And that's where it's happening. If you don't spray them now, you might spray them a little bit later on, but before early June. It's early June where the new crawlers comes out, and they're going to the next, and they get stuck to the branch, and they take with the mouth and just take the sap and basically kill your shrub. So and yeah, this is also watch. It is preventable, and it can do some of the pruning. Next. Insects, don't panic. Except again, mountain pine beetle. That one you have to watch, and if you can do with that vermin, or try to protect. Otherwise, for most of the insects, generally speaking, monitoring is the best thing you can do. Learn about a little bit about the insects, and again, use the chemicals as a last resource. And again, there is a lots of pruning you might be able to do if it's really bad. Next. Diseases. Go ahead, keep going. Needle cast, it's everywhere over Alberta. It's called Rhizosphaera and Lephodermium. Lephodermium is on the pine, Rhizosphaera on the spruce. It's usually killed the needles from the previous years, and that's why we see the arrow. On the yellow arrow, it's a new growth. On the red arrow, that's the last or several years back growth, and that's what they kill. You can, if you take the little bit needles and take under small binoculars or the small zoom to magnify, you're gonna see that that's like a small black dust on the needles, and that's the one. Again, generally speaking, it's not gonna kill the tree. It's more cosmetics. Your tree kind of became naked, not enough needles, and but overall most of the tree recover for both pine and spruce. It's really, again, it's everywhere. We have in Alberta Plant Health Lab. If you have really want to figure out what it is, contact your county. They can take a sample and send that to the lab and figure out which one it is. If you do get that branches, prune them, But again, it's very rarely it's going to kill the whole tree or whole branch for that matter. Next. This one is way more deadly. This one definitely can wipe out half of your tree in short period of time, especially spruce tree. You end up with, on the bottom pictures, you see that on the yellow, whole tree, whole branch is that. So there is no new growth. So the only way to stop spreading this one is the pruning. You have to prune. If you notice this, try to prune them and try to eliminate this one. If you do the pruning, sterilize your tools. Really sterilize it. And I'm going to talk about that in the pruning. Next. Leaf spot is also very common, also could be deadly. Pruning is one of the way, and probably remove the fallen leaves in the fast. If you know that you have this one, and again, send the sample to the lab, they will figure out what it is. And then if you know that you have this one, remove the fallen leaves in infested area. And if you have many of them, you might cut whole trees, not even pruning, take out whole. It is definitely deadly, and it goes after balsam like hybrid poplar. So usually you have that premature drop of the leaves. Next. Fire blight is absolutely devastating. It's a bacteria, it's not even fungi. Apple, space, hawthorn, mountain ash, cotton aster, and few others. On picture on the left is from town of Torsby. I visited this, I was doing inventory for the town, and I inventoried this tree in June. And I came for the second things to check something in this place, and I saw this totally brown, and right away I recognized it's a fire blight. The only way you can do this is prune that to the ground, sterilize your trees, and sterilize your pruning tool. Sorry, and if you get a black case on the left, you remove whole tree. If you have a few branches, remove the branches, dispose them immediately. Don't leave them nearby. Don't prune. One of the things with pruning, don't prune when it's wet and rainy, or that's you don't prune it. You're gonna spread this one, and it's a really nasty one. Okay, next. Black knot. The biggest thing with the black knot, I will cover this in the pruning section. Prune. I think you can still do that today, this next week or so. After that, the fungi inside is gonna start growing. And the biggest thing, prune probably 2 feet below where it's infested. Sharp tools, sterilize after every single cut. Otherwise, you're going to spread them more. And if you have a whole tree, you might consider removing the tree. Now, I have on my neighborhood 3 or 4 the tree totally infested. And every spring, still lots of leaves, still lots of flowers in May Day. It's take a long time to kill the tree by this one. If it's small one, yeah, most likely it's going to speed up, but it's a big one, it takes a long time. Next. Bronze leaf, it's spreading throughout Alberta. It's also very deadly. On the picture on the bottom that you see the Swedish aspen all around. Again, it's $1 million worth of the house, and person want instant trees. I want a closure, and what's the best one? Then the Swedish aspen. Woohoo! Got it, guys. Grow those trees. Bronze leaf came, wiped up now everything, and now when he had to cut and remove because that sticks, he learned the lessons and never again the same species. And this is a prime example why you don't need to plant one of the kind trees around your home, because you will have some of them that is gonna wipe them out. Again, if you have a pine, mountain pine will wipe them out as well. So diversify. Next. Generally speaking, disease, you have a very little things to do except pruning. And there is very few chemicals actually for diseases. To ID, you have Alberta Plant Health Lab, but you have to go to your county. Okay. There is watering and pruning is probably, and maybe in some cases fertilizing is the one way to fight this, but otherwise not much. Next. Environmental issues. Again, all of those guys is 90% of the problems I get. And let's go to this one. Next. Drought. Last year we have a wet and cold, And very dry fall can be definitely severe, especially in the small trees. The only solution you can have, recognize, watering, and other than that, not much you can do. If you have that is lots of older tree, again, if you have a dry year, water trees late in the fall, like heavy water before the freezing. That's one of the, because the tree, as now season comes in, there is still no leaves. The only root water that they can access is the roots. It's the water that you put late in the fall. That's the only water. And if you didn't put that, they will suffer. Because again, usually in Alberta, we have a very dry springs and high wind. And that high wind suck up every possible drop of water from the trees. So the root said, okay, I need a water somewhere. That water that you put in the fall is going to be accessible to the roots to survive dry spring. And again, if you have during the regular growing season, yeah, then water. Okay, next. Nutrients, unless you know what you have a problem with the soil, to add the fertilizer. Otherwise, don't bother. Again, if you know that you have microelements and you need to add the microelements, this is the way to fight nutrient deficiency. In many cases, where the nutrient deficiency also happen when you plant the tree on the wrong spot. Some trees cannot handle too much iron, too much sodium, too much clay, or something like that, and that's also indication of nutrient deficiency. Next. Frost. This is a picture of the good friend of mine in the center, that with the one row of the hybrid poplar trees, good my friend Will Walls, I don't know if he is on this workshop or not, he planted 60 acres and everything was growing fine, and you can see that there was a trees, and then on June 12 got the frost and wiped out 60 acres of the hybrid poplar plantation, and only one row. And this is also indicator he planted some of the tree species that couldn't handle the frost, and only one row left. If he planted this row that was supposedly, he would have a forest. Otherwise, he ended up with the dead sticks. On the next picture, with the spruce, Michelle, you asked that drooping. That's the indication of the frost, late frost. And then you see on the right, when the trunk, usually in the winter time, when it's southeast, south exposure, when the sun heat and radiate on the trunk, you see like a crack. That's where the water kind of get and crack in the forest. Also on the furthest left, on the corner, you see again when they're doing the growing season, you see that trees are like leaves are drooping. It's like somebody. It's not like a torch, but it's again, you just see the drooping and they start falling off, and that's where the frost. Not much you can do about the frost. It's, again, do the homework. What trees might be more handling frost, and that's where the native species are more important than some of the trees that might not be adaptable to the local area. Next. Salt. You will have on the highway 1 and major highway salt. You will have on some of the rural road salt. You can ask maybe not for salt. The best thing you can do, there is remember the list of the salt tolerant species. If you know that you have a salt, plant some of them. Do not please plant the spruce along the highways and you know there is a salt. They are notoriously susceptible for the salt injuries. So don't plant the spruce along the highway as a row. Put them furthest away from their highway. That's the best thing you can do for your spruce trees. And think about salt tolerant species that the guy sent it to you. Next. Salt injury. Again, is example that I show over. The one it's interesting here. Here's a story. This is my vehicle, Toyota Matrix, 450,000 kilometers. And the city planted those trees, and each of those trees to plant to city of Edmonton first year or two is cost between $700 and $1,200. Okay. And then the city folks come with the crew with a pile of salt and cleaning the street in the snow and pile up all of that snow and into the next to the trees. Well, guess what, folks? I walk to this area, or actually I ride a bike to this area. Guess what? First year, trees was okay. Year two, 2 or 3 trees gone. Year three, other 10% of the trees gone. Now I think year 5, I expecting this year probably 30% of the tree be gone. Again, not consideration the planning, what kind of trees to put there. Those are good trees, but the wrong spot. Simple as that. And it's salt kills 2 ways. One of them, when it's physically, like on the left corner side, it's a physically end up on the tree and it burned them. The second way is more dangerous way when it's through the roots. Trees absorb the water, where there's lots of salt, and store in the tree. Same as us human. I'm 51 years old, and my doctor said, "Hey, Tosha, your blood pressure is going up. No salt." Simple as that. And the same thing applies to the tree. Once you get inside of the system, not much you can do. If you know that there's a spraying of the salt, what you can do is take a hose and spray physically, for salt wash away. That's the only thing you can do. Otherwise, just don't plant a tree that is susceptible to the salt. If you have a road that is that people use for the safety reason, spraying with the salt. Next, herbicides, notoriously killer. Usually, it's when I see the tree and with the herbicide, it's randomly, it's like a shotgun. That's how herbicide ends. And some of them are so deadly they go in the roots, of course, and kill the whole thing. Some of them just the foliage. And drifts and vapor inversion is very common. And that's where I have actually one court case that I come as a subject matter expert in that court case and writing on the chemical use. Watch out. And this is also for the counties and municipalities and other professionals to really watch out when they use the herbicides for the weed control. But also for you folks, if you don't know how to use the chemicals, really ask somebody, make sure you use the proper way, because it's really notoriously #1 killer. I always said, there is a very few insects, like mountain pine beetle take 3 years to kill a tree. Okay. Few other insects and disease within 3 or 4 years can kill a tree. Nothing can kill 80-foot tall spruce tree within a year of insects and diseases. Nothing, except chemicals. You screw up with that, it's gonna kill you within a year. And that's one of that you really have to be careful. Next, again, this is a very actually, the one on the right is from my court case situation. Very common. You can see that shotgun approach on the lower left picture. On the spillover, this is very interesting story. I didn't go at that time to the court. It was a landowner on the left called me, said my tree was perfectly fine in June. By mid-July, all of them dead. And I said, how big? He sent me a photo. I said, that's impossible, buddy. I said, the only way is I can take a chainsaw and kill it. I said, no, this is what it is. I said, what the heck? So I tried to do my diligent work. And I said, and he sent me the second photo on the right, where it's written spillover. I said, hey, buddy, what the heck is on that, above that, like a little ridge? What is there? He said, Tosha, it's an oil well. Oh, oil well. And I said, if you probably walk in the oil well, there's nothing there except there's no grass, there is no weeds, there is nothing there. Yeah. And I said, so did you have a heavy rain? He said, yep. So what happened? It was a heavy rain. Water went over the berm, spill over that slope, went to the guy, 45 years old, healthy spruce, and within a month killed him. So, and guy said, I'm going to take them to court. And the oil man said, okay. He called me and I said, hey, buddy, you go there, and as a professional, I can tell you nothing else can kill the tree. You know, and we have a hardcore evidence. And I said, on top of that, I will write a report and request court to release your chemical composition of what you're using there. Landowner called me half hour and said, we're going to make a settlement. So chemicals is absolutely notorious one, and it's more and more court cases, unfortunately, will go because people misuse the chemicals. So don't if you use the chemicals, be careful, because I've seen it, that neighbor totally by accident killed the entire shelter belt to other neighbor. It's and those trees are like really 60 feet, 50 feet, 30 feet or something like that. It's very touchy, so be very careful. Next, winter kill, very common. Again, it's this time of year I got pretty much all of my problem with the trees is this. It's suddenly usually south, southeast, and southwest exposure of the spruce. Don't cut your trees. I've seen 50-foot tall spruce tree, and where I lost a bet in the case of beer. I went to see guy one tree, and totally 50-foot tall spruce tree brown. And the friend sculptor said to me, "Tosh, what do you do?" I said, "Cut it. It's dead." The farmer said, "No, Tosh, I think you're wrong." I said, "That was 2002. 2001 actually. I just moved to Alberta." And I said, "Well, it's dead." I said, "It's not. Put a little bit fertilizer and put the water, and it's gonna come back." I said, "Are you sure?" I said, "Yeah, watch." So the farmer helped the landowner put the fertilizer, put the lots of watering in the spring. And 2 years later, I was going. It was close to Smoky Lake. I was going to that area. I said, "Oh, I'm gonna see my friend." Hold behold, 2 years later, I went to the same spot, same farm. Oh, actually, it was property. That tree that I told them it's dead was totally green. Why? Because the roots are healthy, and roots are engine of any tree. And if you have a healthy roots, they're gonna flush out. And what farmer understood that time, I was naive or not didn't know, giving the fertilizer and giving the watering survived those tree. Now you have some situation like this in winter burn or winter kill where the roots were killed, then your tree is not going to come back. So if you have a winter burn that whole tree is brown, put the fertilizer, put the water. If nothing shows up by August, then it's kaput. But otherwise, most of the time, like remember folks that on the right corner of the cedar, you see the brown. Today I walk, it's totally green, like 100% green. That's like 2 houses away from me. So watch out for this one. So this is where the fertilizer and watering can help. Next, and don't put the burlap around. That doesn't help. Animals, if you're gonna have woodpeckers, wolves, porcupines, beavers, livestock. My thing is tell you it's a part of nature. Watch out. If you can do something, do it. Otherwise, not much. Next. This one, I got last week, I got a request what to do with the sapsucker. It's protected by the law. And the only way you might do something is I wrote to this person in Torhill. If you can put like old CDs that is reflective, or some of the noise that you put among the trees, and one person has like an iPhone with the bird, different bird sound. He put the speaker and just put iPhone and scare them of this. So try that. All of the wrapping and everything else doesn't help. Okay, and it's parts of the nature. But again, making the noise or like cans or that is just noisy, they might distract this coming to your tree. It definitely can kill the tree, and it doesn't kill the tree. It brings the fungi into the tree, and the fungi kill the tree. Okay, next. Ungulates, deer, moose. Best thing is if you have a friends, invite the hunters, or if you have an animal, dogs, maybe electrical fence. But if you have a heavy deer population, not much they will go. Especially folks, if you fertilize your fruit trees, they smell it. They will go year after year for your fruit trees. Okay, next. Porcupines, same thing. If you have a few trees and the big trees, try to put a thin foil around that they cannot climb it. But otherwise, a friend of mine he said, I have a Dr. Winchester and I control my porcupine. But that's his method of using control the porcupine. Next. this is also totally avoidable. Totally avoidable. Lawnmower and weed whacker, they also kill huge amount of trees. If you do anything, friend of mine we've been lawn mowing business always said, put on the highest possible level lawnmower, you're gonna have a healthy grass. If you use the weed whacker, put that plastic guard around it. And that's also where the wood mulch, if you put a wood mulch, you're not gonna have a weed whacker around the trunk. And again, the damage of this, of the cutting the roots or making with the weed whacker is the fungi. And once you get the fungi, you can say goodbye. Next. Compaction, if you have a livestock, if you know that you want to plant the tree and it's heavy compacted, you have to work with the soil. Compaction, basically what it does, it takes all of the space in the soil where the air and the water exist. Like a 50% of the soil is the soil, other 50% is empty space, you know, and that's where the water goes, and that's where the air goes. When you compact it, the roots don't have enough air and the water, and that's the way you kill the tree. Next. Drought, you can water. Chemical, totally avoidable. Totally avoidable. Salt, make sure that if you can plant a salt tolerant species, stay away, take the spruce and other species that are sensitive to salt further away from the roads. I don't know if it's possible in some counties that don't do the spraying dust control. That's one of the options. Compaction, if you can aerate. Winter kill, again, water and fertilizer. Animals, again, livestock. One of the ways livestock, especially horses and cows, is actually urea, because the lots of manure, it's a fertilizer. And what it does to the trees, it tells the trees keep growing, and the trees usually shut down on August and September, try to prepare for the winter. But because of the nutrients from manure, tell the tree keep going. And then the frost came in, and the frost is a killer, but the cause is the nutrients from the animals. Next. Lots of books, lots of websites. Really, the last 4 bottom of them I use all the time now. It's all the time in my vehicle, all the time next, you know, that I can grab it. Good friend, both of the good friend of mine, all 3 of them, Dr. Fry and Doug and Dr. Williams, all of them, they have this garden book of Alberta, very good. There's lots of good material that you can go. Next. Again, those are key messages. Treatment without diagnosis is malpractice. And don't panic, generally speaking. Monitor. Those are some of the key messages. Next. Okay, any questions? 1 or 2 questions? Anybody? Any on the chart? Nope.
Toso,
Okay, Michelle. Michelle, go ahead.
It's me again. I have an issue with the sapsuckers. They're in my willows, my tamaracks, my poplar, my spruce.
Yep.
They're 25 feet tall. And I try and deter them, but is there, like, on the damage that they've done, should I be putting anything on them, or just let the tree heal itself?
Exactly. Even if you put anything, it will not make any difference. None.
Okay.
So don't put anything, and let the tree heal on. It's a part of the nature, Michelle. Living in the nature, basically. That's the thing. And again, try that with the noise. One other person told me what he did is take a 2x2, like a 2 short 2x4s, and clap them like several times. Seems to me, he said, Toso, it's working. And there's probably 10 people told me the same story. I cannot verify. And also the other folks, again, they take that metal tin that is reflective, and you know, clapping on each other. What, Michelle, I can do for you, I respond to this person in Torhild. Send me a quick email and say, Toso, this is what I was sapsucker, and I can fire back to you with all of the list of the things that what you might be able to do with the sapsucker.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Okay, let's go to the pruning. Keep going next. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Okay. Go back. Go back. Go back. Go back. One back. Okay, that's one. Same print. Same message. I'm gonna go very quickly. Most of the trees don't require pruning. Period. You have to have a reason. Safety is must. I would just give you guys heads up. In North America, every second day, one of the arborists are dead. One of the most dangerous professions in North America is the arborist. Those are people who do the pruning and removal and everything else. Every year in North America, we lose 200 arborists. Compared to any other profession, even the big loggers, even guys who cutting the big trees on the BSC and the West Coast, they unfortunately 30 people die a year compared to the arborist 200 of us. So it's very deadly work, and you have to do really safety. Remember 3D, death, disease, and damage you can prune anytime. With the disease, there's a few exceptions. I'm going to mention that. Hire arborist and don't just hire certified arborist, but do the also if you have a close to the home or power lines or something like that, make sure that that arborist has a insurance and experience with that. Especially on the power line, there's a very few arborists who are certified with the power lines. It's not everybody, even the arborist is certified by the power lines. So make sure that you get a reference. Tree risk hazard assessment, if you need it. What I do, I'm not in business of tree removal or pruning. No, I do my consulting. Use my knowledge. I am not removing the trees. I'm not doing any of that. Without that, so it's definitely, make sure if you need a risk assessment, make sure that it's not the same arborist from the same company who's going to do the tree removal, because sometimes what they do, they might give you for free assessment, but they're going to charge you on the tree removal. So, and sometimes their business of the tree removal, not assessment. Tools keep them sharp and clean. Pruning is hard work, but lots of fun. And educate yourself. Okay, let's go next slide. Safety, as I mentioned. Tomorrow I gotta go do the pruning. Last week I did the pruning, and again, even I wear all of the safety, and it was one little branch of the dogwood that is just hit me on my arm, and it's not pleasant. It's small. It was maybe, I don't know, inch, and it's just happened. So have a helmet, have a gloves, have a clothing. Eyes is one of the notorious. Have eye goggles protection, and gloves as well. If you have any danger trees, call arborist. Again, if I'm arborist, you call me. I said, no, I can't do that. I'm not. I know how to cut the trees. I know all kinds of things, but I don't have equipment. I don't want to do that, to be honest. And it's too dangerous for me. I said, no, I'm not gonna do it. All I do, the pruning is a little apples and cherries and shrubs, and that's all I do, pruning. All the rest of it, call the arborist. Especially under power lines, don't play with that. You can be electrocuted if you have a power line. Stay away. If you have a store and trees are fell and you have a power line, stay away. Absolutely, it's must stay away. Don't come close. Don't use the ladder. It's a very common mistake that lots of people use the ladder and they slip in. Weather, like this time of year, it's like we have a snow in Edmonton, and it's still snow, and it's wet and frozen soil and slippery. All kind of things can go wrong. Make sure you're physically fit, that you can do it. Again, I started the pruning a little bit, and first week it was like, holy macro, I'm out of shape. So make sure that you can fit. Any trees, when you see the holes or weak or disease, pay extra attention, because those are trees with a disease and holes, they're weakened. They can snap it while you're working. You just touch with the chainsaw a little bit, or pruner, or a small saw, and they just broke because they have a holes or disease. And if you had anybody ask for WCB, ask for insurance. Any good company will have it. If they don't have it, don't touch them. Okay, next. Reason. I said, and I repeat over and over, most of the tree does not need to do any pruning. Mother Nature pruned them, and they find a way how to live and without pruning. Now, the reason for pruning, you have to be number one, safety. So if you have a trees that you have a dead tops or all kind of things, and you have lots of people around, like campgrounds, like a close to home where the children are playing, on and on. Like last week, I did assessment for Red Deer County campgrounds. I spent the whole day with the county staff and went to 3 campgrounds and marked the trees that needs to be removed. Okay, that's much more to the county that you have to guys think about it. And the reason is that the duty of care, which is actually by law. So safety. Number 2, health. So if you see the tree that you have a cytosporal disease, you have a black knot, you have a fire blight, you have all kind of things, you have to do some pruning to remove the disease parts of the tree. So that's one of the main reasons. Rest of it, the other third pruning, if you have a young trees, to create a nicely possible shape tree when it's gonna good shape that is gonna long last throughout the life. And again, I will show you later on a slide what it means. For the fruit and apples and cherries, all kind of things, definitely pruning is art. I grew up in former Yugoslavia. My grandpa was good in orchards. My dad was good in orchards. It's art. I could personally consider it as art. Back in former Yugoslavia and most of the Europe, you have to have at least 2 years degree in for the pruning. And for the running the orchard, it's like a 4-year degree, university degree. It's a big business. But pruning can encourage the flowering, can improve the fruit production. Last and not least, real estate. If you have a nicely tree and good trees and good yard, it's gonna your real estate goes up. If you have a tree that are danger and needs to be removed, some of those trees can cost you $5,000 to remove the one tree. So you have to look in that. Next. Again, reasons to prune. Protect the people and property. This one on the left is a huge willow trees all over, massive trees. To remove these trees, like a $2,500. Second one on trail in the Red Deer. You guys had a storm like 3 or 4 years ago in Red Deer, and there's lots of bikes and it's a park, and you have a leaning trees, you have a dead trees. So definitely you have to do some of the prune and removal. Avoid the risk. This one is in the park nearby, and half of the trees already have like 1 inch wide between those 2 stems. It's just a matter of time they can fall down. Infrastructure. This is notorious in the cities and towns and malls. When they plant the trees and you have a whole infrastructure on the mall or the street lights or the shops or all kind of things that you might need to do the proper pruning and avoid the damages. Again, diseases, plenty of them, and food production. Next. This is my neighborhood, folks. I'm arborist, and I know some of my neighbors nearby. I use this term butcher. No professional arborist ever gonna call this. I'm the probably only one who use it, and it is butcher. If you look at the picture on the left corner, it's like a pole. The guy cut everything. And I said to him, what's the purpose of keeping that? I said, why don't you carve and like in the West Coast and make something? Nope, I want it like that. It's absolute butcher. And this is not pruning. So the topping, it's a message for tonight. Don't ever top your trees, period. So this has nothing to do with the pruning. This is absolute butchering. The one in the middle with it like a V, and it's done by the city of Edmonton contractor. And I said, oh, that's a lovely one. It's just a matter of time when both of those are ran. It's a weak spot. It's just gonna fall down. But anyway, it's absolutely not a pruning. It's a butchering. Don't do this to the tree. Next. And again, remember that guy previous slide, that the pole. You can see that one from the left, 1, 2, 3, fourth picture. Look at the new branches, and every year new growth comes in. Why? Because he has a healthy roots. Even with like a pole, nothing left, still roots shooting. I'm still puzzled why this person has that tree in the first place. The picture on the second on the right, it's my neighbor, and it's so-called arborist with a pickup and chainsaw, who used to be firefighter, no clue about trees. and he prune it, he goes around and prune the people tree like this. Is absolutely butchering. So what you get when you prune the trees like this, you get a gazillions of small little water sprouts, which is messy and ugly and weak. And literally what you do with this tree pruning like this, you reduce by life of the tree by probably between 50 to 80% of the lifespan. I said to people, why would you do that? If you don't like trees, fine, remove it, but don't have it. Don't do this. It's absolutely devastating. It's like literally, folks, to us that somebody take our limbs, legs and arms, and say, go live, buddy. Nobody would like that. Absolutely nobody. That's the same thing with the tree. Trees are still resilient, still kept going. Next. Power lines, totally avoidable. On the picture where you have an arrow, this is where a small town, they spend on that tree, in each of those trees, $700 to plant the tree, ash tree, and there's a power line above them. I said, did you ever cross your mind to look above? No. And I said, so what you're gonna do? You put that tree is growing well and everything is fine. Within 3 years, he has to top that tree. Why? Totally, to me, that's totally negligent. Absolute negligence in that professional in this particular town. Again, same thing. If you have already shelterbelt power line, considering slowly replacing and putting the smaller shrubs or smaller tree that will never reach the power line. Versus something like this, you have this, and those are trees, the lifespan of the spruce is 120, 140 years. Those are trees, if they make 60, be lucky. It's constant stress to the tree. Eventually roots give in. Roots say, hey, I can't live like this anymore. Okay, next, totally avoidable. Lion tailing, it's also very common practice that lots of people do, and all people who don't know how to prune it. And you can see it's like in the picture in the center, it's like a little like lion tail. Those tree, the branches break so easy when the wind comes in, because it's like a lever. You have on the end of the lever like that lion tail, huge weight, and the wind comes and just eventually breaks down. Again, totally avoidable. Next. Choking, neglect, all kind of things what people do. What always astonished me, this is actually this picture on the right with the wires. It's in the Walmart, not far away where I live. So I went to the manager of Walmart, who has no clue about trees, and I said, okay, you put this and it's cost you $700. They forgot to pull the wire out, choke the tree, kill the tree, and it was like a 50% of trees like that. And now to replace that is going to cost you between $15,000 and $20,000. Totally avoidable, but everybody's different. Next. And again, notoriously avoidable damages of the roots and trunk. All of those things, it's something. If you have a roots, the best thing you sometimes, again, put a wood mulch to protect the roots, and then you're not going to have a problem with a lawnmower and weed whacker. Next. Myths. It's I always said anybody with a pickup truck, chainsaw, and pruners are expert. They're not. Watch out for those people. Watch out those people who come to your property. Oh, I know how to do the tree. Oh, I did this so many times. Most of those people don't have any insurance, don't have any coverage, and you are liable. If something happened to them and to your property, you are liable, matter of fact. And most of them have no idea. There's other myths that is pruning has to be done during the winter. No, pruning can be done anytime. Why we like doing the spring and late winter? Because we can see where I can prune. That's the only reason. Otherwise, I can prune pretty much any time of year. All cuts must be treated with the paint. No, none. Again, good Americans did a pile of studies and using for the paint or the healing the wounds. No, don't do that. You do the proper pruning, you don't have a problem with and no need for paint. Next. Basic principle: before you start pruning, go around the tree, look towards the shape, look at how many dead and damaged and diseased, 3D. Select which branches you want to keep it, remove the weak crotches, and I'm going to show you what that means. And remember, don't try to do, you'll neglect your tree for, like tomorrow I have do the pruning, and tree was neglected for 47 years. And this person said to me, Tosha, I wanted this nice. Well, I can't do that, because if I prune too much, you're going to have a gazillions of water sprouts coming out and doing the damage to the trees. No more than 20% of the live branches that you need to prune. That's it. Wait, take 2 or 3 years to do the pruning, because you were neglecting for so long. So don't rush. Don't try to do it once. Next. What to prune? Again, that disease, decay, suckers, codominant stems, including bark. Again, this is a picture of those 3 trees. First one on the left is total neglect. The second one is a topping, and the third one is proper pruning. Same tree. And that's what we want. We want that on the right graph. That is nice scaffolding, nice central leader. Those are main principles. Next. Again, if you buy the tree, prune them when they're young. And an example is you buy the same tree where you put a circle, red circle. On the top, you prune it, you have a dead leader, you have 2 side branches. And year 2, you have that same leader that goes and few other side branches. And 6-8 years later, you have a nicely tree with a leader and scaffolding. On the bottom one, if you don't do anything, this is what you get. And that tree is much more weak, has crotches, has all kind of branches. Branches are too codominant. In the long run, the tree on the top is going to have a long lasting and more safer tree than the tree on the bottom. You see that photos of the maple, that was most of the tree in the nursery, they do the perfectly nice pruning. And you can see that like a leader, like one, you have a trunk goes all the way to the top. And that's what you want. Next, prune them when they're young. Cuts. Understand what are you doing, and it's a simple things. I want you guys to remember 3 things. You see that branch collar, never that swelling where you have a trunk, then you have that swelling, then you have a branch. That swelling, it's called branch collar. That's the tissue that heal the wounds. You never ever damage that. The second thing, when the 2 branches joins, you're going to have either ridge that is like a pushed up, or inwards, which is included. You don't want an inwards. It's that inwards when the one branch growing another one, and that's where the branch fell off. And I'm going to show you photos how they look like. Go next. Again, if you look the principle on picture of the U shape, usually have a ridge and it's a healthy. More V, don't have a ridge, have an inclusion inwards where the 2 branches join. That's what you don't want. And the picture itself of the elm trees where I used to work, you can see that U shape and nice and healthy, heavy elm trees branches. Actually, the background on my when I'm talking is from that tree, matter of fact. Amazing elm tree, beautiful. But again, that's what you want. You want U and not V. Next. This is my old presentation. That's fine. What you might actually send you a new one. What you might do, you might have a 3-way cuts. First is always do the undercut, make a small cut, you can see, and then you take a big second cut, and that's what you take. You take a heavy weight, and then you have a small little stub. Don't leave that. You make that final cut. You can see where the swelling is. You can see how he cut under the ankle. If you try to do the flash cut, like a vertical cut, you're going to damage that. You're going to damage the tree. So don't do that. Always pay attention to that swelling. Next. Again, branch collar, don't damage, period. And 3-way cuts. That's all of the principles of the pruning. Always do the 3-way cuts. Take an undercut, second cut, take the weight off, watch out for that branch collar swelling, and make a final cut. That's the simple thing you can do for the 3-way pruning. Next. For the twigs, you have on the left side, you have where the 2 branches or 2 buds are opposite to each other. There's only 3 species in Alberta that grow like that: maple, ash, and dogwoods. So if you ever take a branch of the maple and ash and dogwoods, you're going to see the 2 buds side by side on the same branch, okay? And all rest is go like a zigzag. We call alternate buds or alternate branches. So how do you prune it? Again, you put under the 45-degree angle on the alternate. Don't go cut too high. You can see how much is too high or too steep or too low, because it's going to damage the trees. The branch is not going to grow properly. So you just probably a quarter-inch above the bud, depending on the species, and that's how you make a cut. On the when you have on the maple or ash, you just cut above. Just make under, again, slight. Why under the angle? You don't want to, when you cut, you don't want to water stay on your cuts. If water stays there, then rot is going to come through. So always a little bit under the angle to let when it's rain, to let the water go off. Next. And this is, remember guys, inclusion. Remember bark ridge. So when it's pushed up, this is when it go inwards. And you can see on that first blue line, that's where is the bark inclusion. That's where the trees fell off when it's a week, when it's a storm, and again, that can definitely make a damage to a property or the people. The one on the right side, on the further right, it was actually in small town in Alberta, and I was doing something for the town, and I noticed this. I said, "Oh my goodness, there's a big crack." It was in front of the old folks' home, and lots of old folks was there. And if that branch break off in a slight wind, you put the whole branch break off and really injure somebody. So right away, I called the town manager and said, "Listen, this has to be gone immediately because it definitely can kill somebody." So again, sometimes that's where the safety comes first. Next. Again, this is one of just example how things can go wrong with the trees and again, inclusion bark. That's where it breaks off. Next. Again, no need to paint, no need to wood dressing. Remember, you can see on the left side, you can see how that collar branch is closing the wound. Tree has amazing ability, same as our scabs. So when we cut ourselves, you have that tissue on the skin that is closing our wounds. That's the same principle in the tree. It's that collar branch, that swelling I explained to you guys. That's what is closing and doesn't let the fungi. The reason why we don't paint and put anything on it, if you do the painting, the fungi is already there, and you basically just seal it, and it's a perfect condition to fungi to grow inside of the trunk. No, if you notice, it's dry, and the fungus doesn't like dry. That's why we don't paint or put anything on it. Next, or wound dressing. Again, flash cuts, don't do that. So I talked to you about topping, about tipping, bark clippings. Don't leave the stubs. And I'm going to show you next couple of slides. Go next. Stubs. This is notorious. I always say to people, if you already cut this tree, why you didn't cut properly? Why you leave this little stubs? The reason why I don't like them, because that's where they start rotting. And the moment they start rotting, they are still connected to the main trunk. The moment they start rotting, the fungi comes in. Rot is a fungi, and that's the way fungi enter in the tree. And on the right, further right, the fellow, what he did way back, he didn't want to perform the three-way cuts. He took a big chainsaw, zoom. I'm gonna cut. Well, it was a heavy branch, and he tried to make in one cut take a whole heavy branch. Well, he did. But he ripped off half of the tree. Again, I told him, if you do the three-way cuts, you're not gonna have no. Watch what I do. And he got the biggest chainsaw. I don't know why he bought that big chainsaw in the first place, but anyway. So always do the three-way cuts and don't leave those stubs. Next, hedge. My message to you: if you have any hedges, always try to keep the bottom wide and the top narrow. And the reason for that, if you have a top narrow and bottom wide, sunlight would be able to hit your hedge all the way from the ground to the top. If you go opposite, as you can see in the first one, sun cannot reach lower branches of your hedge, and therefore there's no sun, there's no photosynthesis. That's why you lose the leaves. So always bottom wide, top narrow. Next. Topiary. Many people love this. This is absolutely butchering of the tree in my perspective. From tree perspective, health-wise of those trees is lifelong struggle. Really, it's like one of the biggest thing with this one is the hormonal change. Like in every bud of the tree, there's a hormones that communicate with the hormones in the roots, and that's how they exchange. That's how tree grow. It's like literally to us. I'm 51 years old man, and then somebody start giving me steroids and hormones for the rest of my life, and that's basically what this is about. But people like it, people do it. I personally don't. Next. When to prune? Conifers you can prune anytime. There's a few exceptions. Elm tree, do not prune now. It's over. You can remove the elm trees if it's totally dead, but do not prune now because we have one first case of the Dutch elm disease in southern Alberta and Lethbridge. It's removed. Elm is amazing tree, but if we get a disease, and it will be devastating for our elm trees. So that's one of the reasons. Do not prune elm from now till all the way till October. Birch and maple. Try to during the growing season because again they have lots of sap and water coming in, and when it start flowing, you can do the pruning. Usually, I always said I don't prune anymore in September, October, November. That's the time when the tree is shut down, and you may get some of the warm weather because pruning you always create stress to the tree. Unless it's a dead branch or maybe disease. All the time when you prune the live branch is always stress to the tree, regardless. So if you prune them in late fall, tree is going to say, I need to survive. So the reaction of the tree when you prune, I need to survive. And if you prune them in October, November, when it's supposed to shut down and start growing, then frost is going to come and kill it. And again, you can prune any time. Again, safety. Sometimes you have no choice. Next. How much? Simple message, no more than 25%. I would probably go 20, even 25% for some of the species is horrendous. They start producing all of the water sprouts because they try to survive. That's the mechanism the tree works and functions. So don't take the time. If you never pruned the tree in 40 years and suddenly want to prune the tree at once, take 3 or 4 years and you can do the good job and not stress the trees. Next. Young tree pruning. This is a lovely linden tree. You can see the like a one leader together with a stem. This tree is going to have a long life, nice structure, no safety issue. Generally speaking, when it become a big tree, and that's what you want. You want to build a good structure in the young trees. Same with our kids. We try to teach them, be good citizens, good people, go to school and contribute to the society. So same thing apply with the tree. Do it when they're young. Next. After 20 years is more difficult. Like this tree on the right, you can do the pruning, but you cannot do any more structural pruning as you used to. It's more tougher. Branches are bigger. You can do that when it's storm and damage and try to fix it. But already tree in that age is same as a human being. When you're 25, 26, you already shape yourself who you are going to be. Same thing with the tree. So you can still do the pruning, but again, it's not the same as a young tree. Next. Conifers, you can prune at any time. Most of the conifers doesn't need the pruning at all. But there's one of the things, if you have a cedar or juniper or pine in that matter, you can see on the top left what I did. You see that red line, and from on the right side of that red line is the green stuff. On the left is dead, and that there's no green, and it's attached to the my juniper tree. If you cut where is the red line, you end up with the dead sticks. If you cut beyond where is the last green line, you're going to have a new branch, and new branch is going to grow, and new branch is going to be green. Again, on the center of the picture, on the photos, again, if you cut where is the red line, you end up with a dead stick. If you cut anywhere above where is the green, you're going to have a new branch. And here is how the dead sticks look like. You can prune them anytime. Most of the time with the conifers, you can prune because of the, if you want to try to get the more privacy and it became more bushy. And that's one of the way they prune the conifers. But generally speaking, they don't need a lot of pruning. Next. Again, here is on the pine. On the left is a mugo pine. You have a dozen candles every pine. And if you want to get that pine more bushier, that's where you just chop and the new 2 branches is going to show up. On the further right, where is the spruce, you can see all of those are small buds. And you can, again, snip them, new 2 branches, and you're going to get the more bushier, and you want to have a more privacy and more things. With the pine, a good friend of mine, Peter, is showing here, this is the 1-year growth of the pine. So if you cut anywhere between between the two hands of his, you're going to end up with the dead sticks. No new branches going to show up. So you've got to be, what he's showing is the growth of the pine tree within a 1 year. And if you cut between, no new branch is going to show up. With the spruce, you can cut that between and new side branches because they have a lots of bud. You can see on that photo lots of little buds. And every bud means new branch. Next. Maydays, shoeberries, choke cherries, all of them have a cyanogenic toxic seeds. If you have a guy's horses and livestock, if you have a maydays and some other stuff, they can be a little bit poisonous. The biggest reason for this is a black knot, okay? And it's notorious, and it's definitely, again, in the long run, it's never gonna, it takes a long time to kill the big tree. But lots of people is really reduce the vigor and look and shape of the trees. Next. Again, here is example of, again, my neighborhood. On the left, you have a list of the trees that is acceptable to the black knot. You always cut 12 inches below where the black knot is, at least 12 inches, and sterilize your tool after every cut. Don't try to go tree like this and you prune it and you just keep going with the one, you're going to spread more. My neighbor, she did, she got the one guy, I can do that for you. I said, okay. And he came, he sterilized, he spread so much black knot that after the 6-7 years, she said, this tree looks ugly, and she removed the tree. So pruning can definitely spread diseases. And improper pruning for sure is going to spread diseases. So every time when I prune, and I said, no, I'm not going to prune this year. I'm going to wait deep in the winter and do the pruning because you will be able to spread diseases. Next. Again, be careful when you're pruning infested trees with the oyster shell scales. And I told you about birch borer. Fire blight is extremely susceptible for the pruning and spreading the bacteria and disease. So you do some pruning when you have a fire blight and you go on a healthy tree, that healthy tree is going to get it. So be very careful because you can spread diseases with the pruning. This little black knot, that's like a black poop, as lots of people call, has between the 2 and 4 million spores. And little shake definitely can go. And never prune during the rain. That's another thing I always said. If you have a disease, never try during the rain. Next. What to prune? Again, don't do the topping. This is for the fruits. Everywhere when you have a rubbing, you have to remove one. Downward branches, you have to remove them. This is with the fruit. The biggest thing with the fruits, and especially with apples, you're gonna have apples. When you take a branch, you're gonna have on the top. You see the bud. It's like a little stub. That's where it's a fruit or flower bud. And then on the bottom, you see the bud close to the branch. That's a leaf bud. When you do the pruning, you pay attention how many of each of them you're gonna have. And that's where they come to the art portion of it, that you know what you're doing, and if you especially want to go for the production. Anytime you can remove the suckers. And again, most of the apple trees, most of the fruit trees, generally speaking, get neglect, especially crab apples and a few others. Okay, go next. Again, you can see that one of the examples. This is only time what you want to go inside of the fruit tree, that you have a like a vase shape of the tree, and the center is a little bit more open. And the reason why do you have to have a center open that wind can go through? Because during the summer and growth season, apple is a notorious have a very big leaves and lots of moisture within an apple. Okay, and that's the perfect for the fungi. You have a heat, and then you have a moisture, and it's absolutely perfect for fungi. And that's where you get some of the diseases. That's applied for apples, for roses, and pile of other fruit and shrubs. And if you open up, as I can show before pruning and after pruning, you open up that wind can go through and take away some of the moisture. That's the way you do the pruning. You keep that kind of center open, and keep some of the main branches for the production of the apples. Next. Shrubs, remember June 20th and after June 20th. So before June 20th, you have a lilac. It's going to start blooming in May and finish by June 20th. Mock orange, spirea, plums, hawthorns, and on and on. By June 20th, no more flowering with those species. Once they finish flowering, you can do the pruning. Okay, next. If you have a shrubs like a potentilla and some of the spireas and some of the lilacs too, they usually bloom after June 20th. And the only time you do the pruning is now. Literally, if you want to do some of the older shrubs, the best time is to prune them now. Okay, next. Left side is the lilac. And again, there is a hard way and easy way. I explained to one lady, one of my clients, the hard way. You can see on the left side, for the left picture, you have those thick stems, and then you have a small ones. So what you do, you take year one, you take one or two of those thick ones. Okay, usually they're dead or half dead. And then year two, you take another next one, and year three, you're going to end up with a almost entire lilac rejuvenate. The other way, you cut to the ground and you're done. But you're not going to have flowers for 3 or 4 years. Same thing with cotonaster. I did cotonaster a week ago. Oh, it was with my chainsaw. It was lots of work, but that it was a 47 years old, and I just cut to the ground, and new stuff is going to come back. Next. Roses, again, it's hard. It's again, here's a pictures of the good cut and bad cut. Cut is too low, cut is too high. Especially with roses, if you cut too high, the fungi come from the top, and you can see that like a black color, and it goes all the way down. And again, do the proper pruning. And again, the reason pruning of the roses is, again, it's just direction, which way branches is going to go and reduce the messiness. Next. And again, you might take sometimes time if you take a severe cuts all the way to the ground, or you want to take in steps. The biggest thing what you do, any roses that has stems like a smaller than pencil, remove them. Keep the 6 or 7 major branches, and that will going to have a healthy roses. Again, roses has a whole range of the diseases and problems. And definitely pruning is one of the way to make sure that they're healthy and alive. Next. Shelterbelt. I got a phone call from Willow Creek County. They had that fire, and after fire they got a snow. And a good friend of mine, Carla, she called me. I wrote an article for her about the fire, and it started actually parts of the fire, I think, started in the shelterbelt. In the prairie, actually, fire. So when you have a prairie fire coming in, so this is, let's say, Mount View County East. If the prairie fire comes in, actually shelterbelts and windbreaks are extremely beneficial. When the fire hit the shelterbelts and windbreaks, it slowed down the fire. And that was the only time where the firefighter can come and do something and slow down the fires. So if you have a half-mile wide windbreak in the middle of the prairie and they're hit by the fire, that one is going to slow down entire fire. Otherwise, 100 kilometers up 100 kilometers per hour, fire is going to rage. And that's what happened in southern Alberta. So I wrote article to them what to do, because they lost, unfortunately, houses and a hotel. Again, the way fire starts in the windbreaks, it's lower branches inside of the shelter, but some windbreaks are dead, and either lightning hit, catch up the fire from the bottom and move up, then it's over. Or the people are doing the machinery and fixing everything else, using the welding and all kind of things, catch the whatever flame or might be, go into the windbreak, and that's where the fire can be. That's where you need some of the pruning and cleanup, reduce the hazard. Next. Tools. This is my tools. I have 2 chainsaws and few more actually. The biggest message to hear: doesn't matter what you buy. I buy because I do the work. I don't mind to pay for good quality. Doesn't matter of the price. The only one message I have for you: keep them clean and keep them sharp. That's it. I have this Fiskar small little pruner. I love it. But I sharpen them all the time and clean them, and they'll long last. That's the thing. Only thing with the tools. Whatever you buy, clean them and keep them sharp. Next. And buy what you need. Really, I have. Last year I did the one client. One of the things I do for services, after I finish my work, I sharpen the tools of my clients, and I clean them. I have a clean and a sharpen. It takes me like 5 minutes. Last year, most of the people have between the 2 and 4 pruners, but I have several clients that have 21 pruners, and I look at the name of the pruners, high-end pruners, like really $100 worth pruners. And I said, why do you have 21? Well, it's not good. Well, I just look at it right away. I just clean it, sharpen, and it was like a hot butter knife, hot knife into the butter, just boom, clean. And they were like, and they said to me, Tosa, you did now for the rest of my life, I have enough sharp tools. So again, doesn't matter what you buy. I like Felco. That is my preferable Swiss tools, but I do use it quite a bit. But the biggest thing is clean and sharp, and they're gonna last you a long way. Next. So here is the messages. Repeat. Safety. 3D. If you have a tree that you cannot handle, call certified arborist. Make sure you have an insurance and WCB. Pruning is lots of fun. To be honest, like 90% of my clients actually do the pruning more, and they call me to do the pruning and help them out, because for them it's much more mental thing than real work, to be honest. Because they spend outside, they do the pruning, it's fun for them, they learn. I always provide them a little bit of education as well through my services, and they really love their yard. They love their roses, they love their shrubs, they love the flower, and they love their apples, they love the cherries and all kind of things. And for them it's a more mental thing than real anything else. It's fun. For lots of people it's fun. And again, don't forget, most tree doesn't require pruning. You have to have a reason why you need to prune, or otherwise Mother Nature find a way for the tree to grow. They don't need they don't need us. Next. Okay, here is my website with the blog. There is lots of information there. I will send all of the PowerPoint presentation you guys gonna have, or this one, I don't care. This is my websites and contact if you have. If you do have all of the questions, go with the county. They will handle your questions. If you really want me to do some of the work, don't forget, I live in Edmonton. And yeah, I do have a clients in Wainwright and Camrose and Tabasca and all, but I mean, like anything else, if I have to go spend 3 or 4 hours, or well, probably 4 hours, 2 hours to Rocky Mountain, 2 hours back, I still have to charge you. I do have a services for insects and diseases that people can, if they have questions, they can go to the iPhone. I do charge for that. I have actually one client from Calgary, which I help her to how to do the pruning or through the iPhone. And she was having the pod, and she said, when I'm going to cut this, when I'm going to cut this. And I kind of look at and help her out. And she did actually a good job. So, but as I said, I don't mind if, you know, if you want to contact me, yeah, this is my contact. Okay. 3 presentation 2 hours. It's a long talk. I wouldn't mind. I hope I didn't guys fell you asleep. If you do, you know, nothing wrong with that, to be honest. If you have questions and comments, go ahead. I'm still going to be here. So ask anything.
Yes, thank you so much, Toso. That was a very informative webinar. And like you said, a lot of information packed into a short amount of time. But I think we all learned a lot and know how to set our planting projects up for success and how to properly care for our trees once we do have them in the ground. So thank you so much. And yes, please, if anybody has any questions, put them in the chat, or else please unmute yourself and ask your questions that way.
Oh, you have some people in the chat. Oh, my website is not correct spelled. Okay, I'm gonna fix it. Yard Whispers with S in the end.
Okay, so yeah, I see there's a question here. Oh, I see Annie has, I think the cow-calf operator at calving time could compete with the arborist for the most dangerous job.
Annie, if that's the case, it's, I know I have a lot of friends who is in livestock, and lots of people who like to ride the horses, and it's definitely lots of injuries. I don't know about mortality, to be honest. But yeah, it's definitely having any animals, you know, 1,200 or 2,200 pounds animals is always danger, no doubt about that. And I don't know, I hope you don't have a guy's mortality at the arborist. That's, I hope not.
And then just to follow up with that, you'd mentioned not to leave a little stub when pruning. So are you supposed to prune right flush to the trunk? And if so, wouldn't that damage the bark on the main trunk?
Again, absolutely, you need to prune that. But again, you're gonna see on those stubs. Again, remember that swelling where the branch start growing. You don't damage that. And sometimes, you know, they're very. You never do the flush cut. You never cut that is gonna damage the main trunk. You don't do that. You always look for that swelling, and that's where you make a cut. And that swelling is gonna close the wound and get done. But yeah, remove the stubs. That's all I can tell you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Anybody else on the phone? No, I think people are definitely sick and tired of listening to me.
No,
I don't blame you guys. I have a webinar every night, and Bettina knows I'm very sociable person. If you ever see me in the real life, how I give a talk, it's fun. And this is so brutal to me, to be honest. But anyway, Lori, go ahead.
Hi, Toso. Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I do.
What do you use to sharpen your tools exactly?
I use the small, like a little pencil, carbide sharpener. I got Lee Valley, and I think it's cost $17. It's like literally like a size of the pencil you can put in your pocket, and it's a carbide. You have like a 3 size for different kind of sharpening. I found I also got a pouch of the 3 different rocks that you can, you know, sharpen your tools. You have to clean up and water, you know, just have a little bit moisture. But I find out with this small little like a carbide, like a pencil, I think it's cost $17 or something like that. It's the best thing I ever experienced.
Oh, that sounds great. Thank you. What a great information evening. That was wonderful. Thanks.
Thank you, Lori. Again, I'm really, guys, sorry. It's like a 3 hours.
No, it was no, not at all. That was packed. That was great. Thanks.
Thank you, Lori. Anybody else?
Right. Anyone else? Well, if we don't have any other questions, then I guess we will close it off for the evening. Thank you again, Toso, for the wonderful presentation.
Hold on. Anne Marie asked one more question.
Oh.
When you buy a tree in a wire cage around the roots, should you remove the wire cage before the planting? Yes, if you can. Sometimes is it's not easy, to be honest. You know, you have to have the tools to cut the cage. I generally speaking, you can keep it, but down the road that tree is going to grow, and many times the roots definitely go around the wire and can damage the trees. If you can, try to remove, you know, at least when you buy it, at the top of the trees you have to cut. That's no doubt about that. So if the wire goes, you know, and it's ropes, and then you have a wire, cut at least the top and pull it down. Also, one of the negative side of the wire having down the road, if anybody want to dig or do something and hit that wire, usually that wire should rust. I don't like metal in the soil, but if you can, put this way, Anna Marie, if you can't, then stuck, you know, put in the soil and go from there.
Great.
And okay.
Thank you. And thank you everyone again for bearing with us with our technical difficulties.
Hey, we did it, Bettina. I can't believe it. Actually, we did this way.
Oh dear. Yeah, thank you everyone again, and keep an eye out for our future workshops and webinars that we have coming up. And we hope to see you at our future workshops. And thanks again, everybody. And have a good evening.
Thank you for the county of the Mount View and Clearwater County, guys. You have an awesome staff, Lauralee and Bettina and many others, great people. And guys, give a kudos to them and wrote a lovely email to your counselors and tell you about their great job. Okay, that would be awesome.
Great.
Thank you so much, and stay safe, folks.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a good evening, everyone.
Yep. Okay.